wins always.
The US dollar has lost 95% of its purchasing power as the world moves towards blockchain. And
guys, remember when you could get ice cream for like 10 cents? I remember. You know, it's really sad what's happening with the US dollar nowadays. Basically, if you don't notice that the US dollar is dropping, it also means that, you know, real estate is perhaps rising in price, and you see real estate go up 30%. That means your dollar is lost now. Slightly less.
Digital innovation, you start to wonder, is the next world reserve currency going to be a digital asset? Is it going to be XRP? I'm going to go ahead and show you some information why I believe if the world had to take the step today towards a digital world reserve currency, that in fact would be XRP. Let's go ahead and give you some information. I'm going to give you some history. It's going to be a fun video, guys. Let's jump into it. So here's from the Kobayashi letter, the longest bear market, the US dollar purchasing power. Over the last 100 years, the US dollar has lost 95% of its purchasing power. Since 2000, the US dollar has lost over 40% of its purchasing power. Own assets or be left behind. And this is,
I feel like this is also because if you look at historically, now more of people have started using different country currencies to trade. Before we were using USD for everything, but now major powers have combined to actually try to compete with the US dollar as well. And they're selling a lot of their resources in their own currency. That's what's happening with the market.
Why a lot of people,
you know, like, yeah, US knows that. US knows it's losing money. That's why they want to make XRP like the global currency of that way.
People think, you know, owning Bitcoin or digital assets is going to be the solution here. I just wanted to give you some additional information on this. US dollar's long-term decline in purchasing power is well documented. The BRICS nations, which are Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, are accelerating their shift away from the US dollar in global trade, focusing on enhancing financial sovereignty and reducing exposure to US-centric economic shocks, and sanctions. Initiatives include the development of BRICS cross-border payment system and the creation of a local currency-based mechanism explicitly aiming for de-dollarization and not yet replacing the US dollar as a reserve currency, but they're trying to. Now, there's a lot of people that believe this new BRICS currency could be built on something like the XRP ledger or use crypto assets in some way.
I mean, it's pretty obvious that basically the main flag of, or well, the main attractor in crypto is not going to be a meme coin to US investors. It's going to be XRP. It's going to be a US-based company that's going to have its own ETF that the US investors who just got into crypto can believe in.
You have Brazil in here that Ripple has been working with the Brazilian government for quite some time. They have operations in Brazil. They have operations in Africa. They have operations that connect into China and India, and even Russia has tested the XRP ledger. So you start to wonder, what are these, you know, what are they going to be working on here?
I mean, that's not because of the US dollar dropping. It's just because, you know, XRP technology doesn't care which country you're from. You're going to make money from it anyway. You're going to save fees from it. So might as well, you know, make it live.
Is discussion within BRICS launching a new reserve currency, the unit, potentially backed by a basket of member currencies or possibly gold. So here it is. They might put together, you know, yuan and the South African rand and all of these different currencies, basket them together, back it with gold or oil, and that could be what backs this new currency. Now, could XRP become the world reserve currency? XRP, of course, was developed by Ripple Labs. It is designed for high speed, low cost, and scalable cross-border payments. These features solve many pain points in traditional banking and fiat transfer systems. Industry experts, including Wall Street, Linda P. Jones, and Ripple CTO David Schwartz have speculated that XRP could become a global reserve currency due to its neutrality.
I mean, I don't believe that. Why not make a stable coin, for example, like a global currency? Why XRP? So let's say if they want to make XRP a global currency, you buy a house and the next time XRP goes down 50%, you could have bought this house half cheaper. Do you get what I mean? The currency is always going to be something cheap.
Country controls it, efficiency, sustainability, and settlement between international banks. When you are a competing superpower, you don't want to give the power that you might be up against, right? You might be doing trade, you might be friends on paper, but at the end of the day, right, your military is planning what happens if you guys attack each other. There's always these conversations and all these plans. So countries are wary about if the US dollar were to fail tomorrow and they had to go to a new currency, Russia would want their currency, right? China would want want their currency. India would want their currency. And it's very hard to agree on what that currency could be. And this is why maybe it could be something like XRP, because it is a neutral bridge asset. XRP's distributed ledger is already attracting institutional interest with banks and payment providers testing.
Very important to say, banks only accept a certain part of the XRP ledger. They won't integrate the whole XRP ledger, like the whole blockchain, but maybe they want to use the fast transfers, and it's like a tool, you know? XRP ledger might be working on some things with Bank of America and other things with Bank of Japan. They each want its own thing. Some of them want very low transfer fees, the other one want very fast. Anyway, you get the idea.
Or adopting Ripple's technology as a bridge asset for liquidity settlement. Talks about practical financial impact proposals submitted to the US regulators project that XRP could unlock much of the 1.5 trillion in banking liquidity, primarily through freeing up capital now trapped in Nostro Vostro. I've seen this number as high as like 25 trillion, right? I don't know if 1.5 trillion is quite accurate, but maybe some of the US banks. It does talk about annual transaction cost saving estimated at 7.5 billion. I believe it's way more than that. And I just want to get into some other information here. So this is cool. I was looking this up and I thought, you know, I'll add.
Dutch Republic's dominance international trade, Dutch guilder, reserve currency timeline last 600 years. And yeah, it was different things for the Dutch reserve currencies. Like we had different stuff. We have US now, and I feel like it's going to stay US for the next 100 years. Because look at here, the Portuguese real, you know, that's not existing anymore. And also, this only lasted for 200, at least this lasted for at least 200 years. So this doesn't indicate that XRP is going to be a world reserve currency. Now, that's a bit of a reach in my opinion. I don't think it will happen. But guys, let me know in the comments below.
This into the video. I thought maybe some people would like this information. Portuguese real Spanish. So during the 15th and 17th centuries, the world reserve currency of that era was the Portuguese real, Spanish real de ocho. And then in the 18th century, 17th and 18th centuries, about 200 years, the Dutch guldeer was the world reserve currency. So big shout out to everyone that is watching that is from Dutch Republic. I should know this. I do apologize. Is it Amsterdam? Hold on. I'm so blanking. Netherlands. Man, Cass, my editor, is going to kill me. Blonde moment there. I apologize. British pound sterling, early 19th century, mid 20th century. And then here's the US dollar, 1944 to present. So, you know, you start to see shorter time spans of these currencies being held. The average is 80 to 100 years. We are approaching that number pretty quickly here in the United States. So you start to wonder what is next. Now,
I don't think that it will XRP could replace that, because why wouldn't they just pick another stablecoin? Why would US ever replace their US dollar as a reserve currency? I mean, it's a bit of a far reach, don't you think? Like, you could be picking anything else than XRP. So why would you pick XRP, which, yeah, it's a very good structure, but it's not made to replace a world currency.
Already existing standard drawing rights SDR. And most critically, who have the authority to manage it, right? So who is going to be in control of it without an effective government to back it? A world reserve currency of any kind, whether based on the SDR or invited de novo, would have difficulty attaining even a minimal level of credibility. So this is why you start to wonder, you know, could Ripple that SDR? Let me just show you this real quick.
Or that a group of countries across the world agree to a set of rules and they agreed to play by them.
What underpins a world order is always the financial system. And what we're seeing in the world today, I think, is we are on the brink of a dramatic change where we are about to, and I'll say this boldly, we're about to abandon the traditional system of money and accounting and introduce a new one.
Everyone's been predicting the demise of the dollar for a long time.
And the new one, the new accounting, is what we call blockchain. It means digital. It means having a almost perfect record of every single transaction that happens in the economy, which will give us far greater clarity over what's going on. It also raises huge dangers in terms of the balance of power between states and citizens. In my opinion, we're going to need a digital constitution of human rights if we're going to have digital money. But also, this new money will be sovereign in nature. Most people think that digital money is crypto and private. I find it very difficult to talk about the world order that we're coming into, given how very tenuous and unstable.
I'll say it again, and I always said it. I really feel like that cryptocurrency will always be like a secondary stock market, but it will never like reach to the point where Bitcoin is going to be anything more than an asset. It's not going to be a currency itself. And if it's gonna be stable coins. Stable coins which are gonna be digitalized, which you can digitalize them already as well. So it doesn't make any sense. You know how hard it is to gonna be replace like a 300 trillion with a T market cap? How you're suddenly gonna tell people, hey, we accept XRP? We haven't even gotten to the point where XRP can accept more than 1% of the global transactions. So this is just like wishful thinking for now.
The current environment is. In my lifetime, this is the second time that I have seen the superpowers actually threaten the possibility of nuclear war.
Man, everybody wants their own power, right? Everyone's vying for the effect. The IMF is indeed discussing the real possibility of a world reserve currency, and the conversation is centered around digital assets and related technologies. Their documentation and expert commentary show that the debate has shifted towards digital money, central bank digital currencies, tokenized assets, stablecoins, or potentially a digital form of special drawing rights. What technology? So like, I didn't even talk about XRP here, right? I did ask what technology that Perplexity thinks that if the IMF had to make a decision on a new world reserve currency or an ESDR, what digital asset would that be? And you guessed it. Let me show you. It does talk about central bank digital currencies. The IMF sees CBDCs as a critical part of the future international system, especially for cross-border payments, financial inclusion, and policy transmission. Talks about most major central banks are exploring or piloting their own CBDCs, and frameworks for interoperability and scalability between the digital currencies are top priorities. So how do you make all of this work together? If every central bank creates their own technology, right, that doesn't interconnect with the current system, the new rails, rebuilding the same system that we currently have. The reason the system is broken, right, the SWIFT system, is everything is siloed, right? Nothing is able to interconnect. Everyone's sending different messages, and this is why we moved to ISO 20022, and the world is all doing different things. Everyone needs to be on the same plane, doing the same thing, making interoperability, and this is how value will move seamlessly across borders. Talks about tokenized ESDRs. There are significant commentary suggesting that the IMF could promote a multi-currency digital asset, a digital reserve asset, which would be...
Now, this is a nice thing that the government has been teasing in January, that we are getting our own XRP, that they're going to be buying XRP. Imagine the US government telling you we're going to be buying XRP. That would definitely be nice. They said they will buy crypto assets, Ethereum, Bitcoin, XRP, but soon they actually found out this is a legal issue because you're going to have to spend taxpayers' money, which they didn't ask for to buy crypto. And someone has to hold that, right? So they basically said that it's not going to be done this year, which I found very sad because that would definitely boost XRP and crypto. But yeah, that is something that the government is considering. Not world currency, not using, stable coins are going to be its own thing, like separate from the US dollar, but they're going to kind of boost it in that sense. So just consider that XRP can still be the number one pick for a lot of these countries.
Backed by a basket of major currencies, an ESDR could use blockchain technology to facilitate issuance, transparency, and flexibility in supply, and would be politically neutral if managed by a consortium of central banks and private sector actors. By a consortium of central banks. Or
the issue with US dollar is going to be very hard to replace. Like replacing the US dollar overnight, it's like gonna cost billions.
Private sector actors. Private sector, what does that mean to you? Well, it's like Ripple, right? Circle. It's where the private sector comes into play. Banks are inherently bad at creating technology. They go out into the world and they partner with the private sector to bring the best technology forward. And that's what we have been seeing over the last few years when testing the XRP ledger or the XLM or Hedera HBAR. So let's talk about interoperable permission networks. IMF and central banks stress the need for technologies that allow global, interoperable, and secure settlement rather than fragmented on private chain solutions. So, big discussion used to be private chains. We need everything private, private, private. Now, banks and central banks have been open to looking at public blockchains. This is where the XRP ledger could provide both of those, right? Ripple has private ledgers for the central banks that want to build wholesale CBDCs, right? Make all of those transactions private, but then you use the XRP ledger public if you want to make some type of retail CBDC. This has led to proposals for permission distributed ledger technologies with robust identity, compliance, and settlement mechanisms, potentially integrating platforms like Ripple and Stellar. It already knows, right? If you look back at the last 10 years, all the piloting and the demonstrations and the working groups and everything else, Ripple and Stellar show up time and time again. They are there in the rooms behind the scenes. Ripple, more so than Stellar, in my personal opinion. Stellar's really focused on the retail aspect of all this. Ripple's always target the institution.
So Stellar just had a partnership with PayPal, but it's really the money is coming from the big bank partnership. So yeah, Stellar is another project that's doing well. And obviously, if one of these projects does well, the others will follow. So don't feel bad if one of these projects outperforms the other. Let's say Stellar does a 200x. That means also, the same industry, XRP will also do well. So just let that sink in mind.
Level, right? This is why owning both of these assets could be hugely beneficial in the future. Which assets, and Stellar, excellent, are similar assets and often discussed as leading contenders for connecting legacy banking with blockchain rails due to their speed, efficiency, and track record across cross-border payments and institutional partnerships. It doesn't say Chainlink. Notice that? Everyone says Chainlink's the solution to everything. Chainlink.
I mean, a lot of these companies and a lot of these projects got outsourced and are basically much worse than they were before. Like XRP is the number one because it kept developing and upgrading. You guys don't believe me, there's 10 times the upgrades we saw with some other projects that just faded out.
It's not a settlement asset. Chainlink is nor a bridge asset. Chainlink is a vital piece of the puzzle. Don't get me wrong. All of this stuff needs to work together. You're going to need multiple ecosystems, multiple blockchains, multiple technologies to make all of this work correctly. You never want to have just one thing. Imagine going forward and we're relying on just one ecosystem. Something happens to that ecosystem in any capacity, the world would shut down. This is why you need to have the interoperability part. You need to have all of the working groups. You need to have all of these countries and governments and jurisdictions talking and working together to build this. All right, let me show you this real quick. This is Brad Garlinghouse way back in the day. Should say you're playing an old clip. I understand, but it goes to what we're talking about.
When XRP was created, this actually was created before Ripple existed. The creators of XRP decided there'd be 100 billion units because they saw it as rather than having a smaller number with a very high price, they saw it as something they wanted to be effectively a global reserve currency.
When they were building this, they had it in their minds. We're going to build the next global reserve currency. That is what their whole goal has been from the start. One of them, at least. And the evolution of Ripple, the company, going through the lawsuit, getting the legal clarity that they need in the biggest jurisdiction in the entire world, which is the United States, now becoming a national bank. The puzzle pieces are finally coming together. We're starting to see that this has been planned all along.
So let's just sort of think about this. You've got a bunch of different tokenization systems, and ideally, you do want different countries, you want global commerce. Wouldn't you need a central bank, sort of one central, not necessarily sort of like a reserve currency where everybody could exchange their tokenized assets and trade them? Wouldn't that require...
Listen, really quickly, you got to understand, you need a bridge asset to go in between different currencies or different cryptos or different assets, right? So if you tokenize real estate and stocks and derivatives and debt and all these different things, right? You have all of these a whole list of them, right? But you need to swap those into whatever else you're selling into. And if you have every currency or every digital currencies that's interconnected, you can swap anything for anything. That is the future of what we're talking about here for cheaply.
That will happen in the future, but this is going to take at least 10 years, guys. For XRP to have and handle these type of transactions, that's called real world assets, RWA. You guys are going to be hearing a lot more about that, but we're in very early stages of that happening.
Right? Under a penny. Instant settlement, 3 to 5 seconds. This is the future of finance. I thought this clip was really good. I've actually interviewed this gentleman years ago, and he's like I do apologize, I cannot remember this gentleman's name to save my life, but he is building in the XRP space. Let me go ahead and play this.
You hold XRP, you own at least one XRP is 1/100 billion of all the wealth of the human race.
What would that make for the entity Ripple then?
Well, that would make Ripple the world bank.
Let's expand upon that. What does that mean for those in the audience who might not be engaged in the XRP community or have an understanding of what the World Bank entails?
I'm sure as people who have never heard this before or aren't aware of Ripple and XRP, they're listening to this and they might think, oh, this guy's a conspiracy theorist, right? They don't know because somebody like me who has studied finance going back to the Roman Empire, going back to before that, all the way back to the stone money dials on Yap Island in the Federated States of Micronesia, when you look at the patterns and history of money to where we are right now, after the petrodollar, after we came off the gold reserve, there's really only one competitor to be the global reserve currency, only one thing that can come in and replace the dollar, and that is XRP.
Reaper Finance is the guy's CEO. Let me see if this is still around. Reaper. All good. Let's keep it going here. Ripple. Most importantly, we remain.
I just don't feel like the US dollar can be replaced anytime soon, but it doesn't have to. All these bank partnerships are going to bring a lot of money to XRP.
More committed than ever to the simple goal of making XRP the world's reserve digital currency, right? These are exciting times. We don't know where the future is going to take us here, but I know I want to be a part of it. And I think you do too. That's why you show up every day. That's why you are trying to learn as much as you can, as quickly as you can. And it is an absolute honor to be on this journey with you. Have a good Sunday.
I mean, yeah, replacing the world reserve currency, it can become a legal tender at some point. But the thing we have for that is Bitcoin, and it's going to be for smaller countries. XRP will definitely hit the stock list, in my opinion. It's definitely going to go public with Ripple. At least that's what the rumors are, and that's already good enough for me. But what you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. We got another video. XRP Ripple massive update. When I see Miles G, he's somewhere different. So he must have made some money with XRP. Hopefully, he's having a good time. But look at this.
They're holding XRP. You are not going to want to miss this video. Now, as well, if you guys are holding XRP, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. It's going to help to share this videos with other people that need to hear about XRP and this particular message. But what is going on right now? This is the ultimate shakeout. The ultimate shakeout.
That's what I've been warning you guys about. The whales are buying XRP at $3. Even if the prices don't move, it's because we are still having the sell pressure from 3.66 range.
Before the final leg of the bull market. And for XRP, I'm still confident we're going to reach $5 to $7 at the very bare minimum. Some people are calling $20 to $30 for one XRP coin. Let me know if you guys think that is realistic.
$5 to $7 is definitely possible, but again, it's going to be like maybe 4 years before XRP hits $10 to $20, like those big ranges, right? These are the long-term plans. Some people will not wait 4 years. Some people will sell meanwhile, and that's completely fine. But just realize that this is a 4 to 5 to 10 year project. It's not an overnight thing. That's why Ripple took like last 9 years. If I was talking about Ripple 4 years ago, well, guess what? Like I would be in a much better position.
Also in the comments, let me know your price prediction for XRP this bull market. Now, according to the 4-year cycle, Bitcoin is supposed to top out towards the end of October. And this is going to be a time where you're going to definitely want to be taking profits and trimming some profits, reducing your exposure, because these bear markets, they get very violent, very nasty, very quickly. And you don't want to be left holding the bag and round tripping a lot of profits like the majority of people do every single cycle. The great thing about bear markets is they only last 1 year, and that's supposed to start once Bitcoin tops. It's lasting.
The funny thing is we had a bear market in crypto lasting 3 years, like the past 3 years. So I really want to see how this bull run handles out. The crypto XRP bear market literally lasted 4 years because of the lawsuit. So just let that considered, not just 1 year in my opinion.
For about 1 year. So crypto should go down for about 1 year exactly, and then they're eventually going to bottom. So if you guys are able to sell and take profits for XRP and other cryptos at the top, you wait for 1 year, and then you could buy the dip and start dollar cost averaging in to Bitcoin and to your favorite cryptos such as XRP. You're going to be able to buy a lot more cryptos, and if this is your second cycle, you'll probably be able to retire. Now, this is not financial advice, but if you have enough money and you buy the bear market bottom and you continue to hold for 3 years and catch the entire move, there's a chance that you can make a lot of money potentially.
That's the issue. You don't know when XRP is going to bottom and when you know when it's going to top. There might be indicators, but even top traders, they can never predict this right. They might see patterns, but obviously these patterns can change at any time. If you look at the crypto market, exactly when we thought XRP was going to explode, it didn't. And then the other day it goes up 25% because I feel like it's more a small market where whales have a bigger play.
Life-changing money and retiring type of money. Now, what is going on right now is a massive shakeout, a massive manipulation. There is no bad news. In fact, there's only good news. We recently had the confirmation last week, I believe Friday, the Ripple case, SEC case ending. That's very bullish for XRP. And then we also have the Fed cutting. The Fed is now dovish, and they said they're going to be cutting rates. That is extremely bullish. Some people are like, oh, it could be priced in. No, rate cuts are not priced in. Rate cuts are a physical event, just like a happening event. It's a massive financial economic event that injects liquidity into the markets. Over time, rate cuts are very, very bullish. And in the offset, just right in the beginning, there might be a little bit of volatility because, people might be taking profits or pricing in this and pricing in that, but that is just temporary. Long term, rate cuts are extremely bullish for the stock market and cryptos, risk assets, and a whole bunch of assets like houses and everything. You're going to see prices start to go up. But behind the scenes, whales are buying XRP, whales are buying Bitcoin, and we've recently seen a massive record number of Bitcoin ETF outflows that have been going on for the past 5 days. And typically when you see a massive amount of outflows for Bitcoin in the ETFs, that usually will mark a bottom. Bitcoin has literally been correcting for about 14 days, almost 14 days, 12 to 14 days straight. And that's typically the amount of time after such a correction, cryptos are going to start bouncing up. The reason for the crash this past weekend was profit taking. There was a lot of leverage in the market, but one particular whale sold 24,000 Bitcoin at one go. And that literally liquidated a bunch of people, caused a massive chain reaction.
It's the thing, like any whale, XRP whale, the markets are small enough for them to sell and liquidate the markets. That's what I'm trying to warn you guys here.
Started panic selling, and now the market is just starting to bottom out from this crashing correction. We're starting to go up.
It's what I've been warning people for the last 2 months. It's that whales have much more power than you might think. And yeah, they are just making money. You can't hate them for it.
Up. If you notice XRP, the XRP chart, we are starting to form higher lows. So XRP is still holding support. XRP technically is still very bullish, and this is at a massive discount. XRP is at key support. You want to be buying XRP at key support. Some people are predicting a massive crash in September.
That's the thing. Key supports can be broken. Like right now, XRP is $3. I don't think it will happen. I don't think the support will be broken. But there was many times where key supports at $3 were, went suddenly to $2. Now, I don't think this will happen. Why? Because the rich whales are buying XRP at this price point. But who knows? Let me know in the comments below.
And that could take place. I think that might be even realistic because typically in the 4-year cycles for Bitcoin and cryptos, there will usually be a massive crash in September. That will be the bottom, and then we continue to trend up for a couple of months. Just like last year, the summer we were chopping around just like we are right now. And in September, we end up bottoming out, slowly started grinding up, and then October is when things start to get really, really crazy. I'm expecting towards the end of September and October beginning is when things are going to be getting really crazy for cryptos, including XRP. And make sure
I think, personally, it's gonna be 1st of October. 1st of October is when I'll be making massive updates on this channel. Remember this date, because this is where crypto really, really changed forever. And this is when billionaires are predicting it as well. So look at like Levi looking here about Tom Lee. Now, Tom Lee is a billionaire, and he has been talking about XRP market cycles as well. Look at that. So just so you guys can know this.
Getting defensive, that's why we've been bleeding for 5 days. And so now I think that...
Don't be afraid that this market has crashed a bit, because this is what the billionaires are doing.
There's a relief and some capital gets put to work, and it's, it's good for equities and risk assets.
How much more can these stocks rally?
I think there's a lot of upside, especially because, once you get an ISM back above 50, it really does argue for a broadening of markets. And I think one of the leaders probably comes from the financial sector. So I think, towards the end of the year, 6,800, 7,000 is possible.
Led by tech still?
Yeah, so I think you still want to play
this week.
Yeah, you want to be long AI and the crypto trade because those have been the market leaders. So the Mag 7, Bitcoin, Ethereum.
Very recently, Tom Lee signaled that the Federal Reserve is getting ready to pivot, and there is a ton of upside for all of the top cryptocurrencies, including XRP. And that's what we're going to discuss in today's video. Because if the Fed is pivoting, like pretty much everybody is believing on Wall Street, like JP Morgan and Chase, Goldman Sachs are all believing, then what this shows is that a lot of liquidity is getting ready to come back into the markets in a massive way. Trillions of dollars flooding in. And, well, it doesn't happen exactly when you guys are expecting it all to happen. And so that's what we're going to discover, talk about, and bring to you guys in a very valuable...
I feel like the big potential we have right now is the retail investors, guys. Again, 2021 retail investor was huge. And now we are talking about corporation investors when the ETFs arrives, guys, in October. This is what nobody's telling you. It's not just retail. I don't feel like retail is going to be the strongest. It is going to be an effect. But the corporations buying, again, they want to diversify their assets because the dollar is getting really bad right now. So the billionaires are predicting corporations will be buying. What do you guys think?
Way in today's video. Now, before we get into that, I do want to mention that I did just launch.
We just heard.
Well, I think that it's the Fed acknowledging that the risks now are tilted for the labor market to be softening, and they want to head that off, especially because they don't think that tight labor markets are going to necessarily create inflation. That's a very good sign, and I think it means we have a dovish Fed again, and that's kind of a green light for small caps.
Small caps
and for equities.
I mean, they are working. Last I looked, small caps were up 3%. So is this what we need to really confirm the sort of broadening that comes and goes in the market?
Yeah, because I think that one of the things we should watch for is what happens to mortgage rates. But mortgage spreads are right now 360 basis points higher than the 10-year. Historically, it's 1.6 percentage points. So you could see a huge drop in mortgage rates. That's going to help housing, helps the financial small caps. And I think already the ISM, which has been below 50 for almost 30 months now, could finally go back above 50, and that's a good sign for industrials.
Although we had a discussion right on the heels of the speech about a little steepening in the curve. Is there a sense that the vigilantes are at least present, if not being necessarily vocal?
Yeah, but we could also be steepening because growth expectations are improved.
See, growing rate. The economy is getting better, more money coming in, which means US dollars. Companies don't like keeping US dollars. What will they buy? Crypto. The top 3 cryptos, Bitcoin, XRP, Ethereum. These are going to be the top ones, including stocks. Stocks will also grow. But, you know, some of these companies, they like to get a little more riskier, on the riskier side, in my personal opinion.
As well, so this could be like what I'd call a bull steepening. I'm not really sure what the fixed income terms are, but I think it's actually a positive sign for growth.
The only real losers today are going to be some of the yielders and some staples. Would you be cautious on those?
That's right. I think that markets have been holding their breath. They've been getting defensive. That's why we've been bleeding for 5 days. And so now I think there's a relief and some capital gets put to work, and it's good for equities and risk assets.
How much more can these stocks rally?
I think there's a lot of upside, especially because, once you get an ISM back above 50, it really does argue for a broadening of markets. And I think one of the leaders probably comes from the financial sector. So I think, towards the end of the year, 6,800, 7,000 is possible.
Led by tech still?
Yeah, so I think you still want to play
this week.
Yeah, you want to be long AI and the crypto trade because those have been the market leaders. So the Mag 7, Bitcoin, Ethereum. But the broadening is really the financials, industrials, and small caps.
So you like them all?
Yeah, it's kind of cyclicals, AI and crypto, but not the defensives. I think it's a really important moment happening this year with, the Genius Act, really greenlighting stable coins, and then Project Crypto, which is Wall Street moving on to the blockchain. I think it's a lot like 1971 when the US dollar went off the gold standard. That created the innovation of Wall Street because they had to sort of essentially create this synthetic dollar.
This is exactly the times the market really pumped.
Wall Street moving on to the blockchain is a bigger moment, and I think that's why Ethereum is essentially having its 1971 moment equivalent.
But a lot of people just see it as wild speculation and fraud.
So basically, the crypto markets are going to change forever overnight. That's what he's calling for. If this year it goes up at least $5, I'll sell. Yeah, that's a pretty good, time. Again, not financial advice, but it seems like $5 is going to be on a higher risk level for a lot of people. So there is an RSI for XRP, and at $5, it kind of makes sense, especially for the big whales to start selling off. But we first have to break out through the $4 mark.
People tend to call it froth. I think they called AI a frothy trade now, but we know it has a lot of legs, and it's been taking place for a couple years. Keep in mind, Ethereum is also the place where when agentic AI comes together, when you have robots and you want proof of human, you want to make sure those commands come from a verified source. That's all taking place on a smart contract. A lot of it will be
technology is the ones that's really going to be awarded. Everybody, like, I guess, guys, we can agree technology is the thing that really people will look at. And here's where, AI and payment transfers really win.
So what you can very clearly see here is Tom Lee is tying in the AI boom to cryptocurrency growth. And of course, stablecoins are going to play a very large part in that as well. In essence, he's perma-bullish on the crypto market and artificial intelligence, saying they're essentially going to be leading the charge on this bull run. And that's why I think particularly it begs everyone's attention to be looking closely at XRP, because they're focused down heavily in the stablecoin space. They're solving real-world financial issues. They have ETFs on the way, and we've already...
I mean, interest rate cuts are going to be a big thing, but the issue is one interest rate cut for a bull run is not enough. If we could get at least 2 from Jerome Powell, that would be amazing. Also, the ETFs, that's a big thing that, basically XRP has been begging for. And if anyone's going to get XRP ETFs, it's going to be XRP with that trading volume. And we could be getting, this could be the start. XRP ETFs in Korea, imagine how many sellers. Like, if we have a lot of traders in Korea from XRP ETFs, there's going to be a huge influx of buyers.
Seen previously back in November what happened when we had rate cuts and an election super cycle happening one in tandem with one another. It massively outperformed Bitcoin and Ethereum and pretty much every other crypto altcoin during that 3-month period of time from November to January. And so I do think that overall there's a ton of upside here, very little downside to, in my point of view anyways, to a lot of these higher cap cryptocurrencies, which are fairly cyclical, as Tom Lee was mentioning here. And that's why I'm preparing to really just put my head down for the next few months here, especially after the rate cuts happen, if they do happen in September or October. Either way, it's time to really buckle down, lock in, and just make the most of this bull.
October, every single streamer, every single I can't say politician, but every single person in XRP is saying October. And that's why, guys, I'm doubling down. I'm not doubling down on September. I like to be honest with you guys. September is not going to be a big thing in crypto, I personally believe. And you can come back and, I don't know, tell me like September was awesome. But personally, I believe October is going to be the big thing. Ripple USD, how does it drive the value of XRP? So Ripple USD basically is going to be another big thing. They're going to be partnerships, and basically you can pay bank loans, you can pay contracts, bank transfers, whatever it is. That's where Ripple USD and all of these projects are really going to shine, because they have some NDAs in work. So XRP holders, something strange is happening with ETFs. Let's take a look. Brad Garlinghouse, the ETFs are where the big money's at. And that's going to be happening in October. It's going to be happening week by week. There's going to be one new ETF every single week.
From their case against Ripple. And Wall Street is preparing secret XRP ETF deals. Jerome Powell just hinted at rate cuts that could flood trillions into crypto.
Fortunately, after 4 years of a hard-fought legal battle, we prevailed.
This could be XRP's biggest moment ever. So Brad is about to drop a bombshell of the interview, and he's going to explain how the stablecoins market is changing.
Look, I think as the crypto industry has emerged from kind of the last administration where the industry was being attacked, working with the most trusted, the most well-regulated, and even the best capitalized partners is a way to continue to build trust in this system. And stablecoins at their core, by their nature, it's a dollar backed with a dollar in deposit. The shift of tide where we've had headwinds for this industry are now becoming tailwinds, and I think we're going to see a lot of growth. Building trust for the whole industry and having RLUSD, our stablecoin, which just passed $500 million of market cap, we launched only about 6 months ago. So we're really pleased with that trend line and feel like this will only continue to build that trust.
It's small compared to some of your competitors.
Yeah, it's small compared to other competitors, but you got to think, this was just announced about 6 months ago. So RLUSD hasn't been out for that long, and it already reached $500 million worth of market cap. And the main country that is adopting RLUSD is Japan. They were the first.
So this is when you asked me, like, what is really Ripple USD? Japan is actually a very big buyer into Ripple USD. Again, all of these banks, they're not going to like take the whole blockchain. They're not going to take the whole Ripple tools they have. But that's why Ripple is basically laying its eggs everywhere, because they're offering tools for their services and they're going to get paid for it. There are no other confirmed countries where Ripple USD has been adopted or launched as of this date. I feel like this is going to be next year when we really see a lot of movements with Ripple technology. Again, we're in very early stages. Banks have not done anything yet with XRP. They just signed partnerships, guys. They just signed it, but we are still not at the point where, you know, crypto is just going to XRP is just going to get accepted everywhere overnight and be used for global transfers. But this is the first step. You know, the lawsuit being over is these ETFs doubling down.
This country to have formally approved and prepared to launch Ripple's dollar-backed stablecoin, RLUSD. So Brad Garlinghouse has stated in an interview that he predicts that XRP could capture 14% of Swift's global transaction volume within the next 5 years by 2030. And the Swift platform has $5 trillion in money transfers per day, which equates to about 1.25 quadrillion in annual transactions. So imagine if XRP has 14% of Swift, this could easily put it past $100. Now,
I still think if they want to get to 14% of Swift, it's going to take some time probably.
This is a long-term price prediction.
Like $14, like 14% is going to take like maybe like 3 years. 10 years, 8 years. Swift is a global currency, guys. It's not going to be overnight. But this tells me there's a big economy there, right?
It's not something that's going to happen immediately. But with the Genius bill being passed, the SEC dropping their case, we're actually having a framework for XRP to be a solidified global banking integration, which will transform global payments forever.
As you probably know, Ripple at its core has been a payments company in solving a cross-border payments problem. We use stablecoins, we use XRP where it makes sense. And stablecoins, when we were using that, we were a big part of activity for us. We were minting a lot, and we thought we can participate in this market, given our institutional background, given the fact we've leaned into compliance and been very regulated. We have over 60 global licenses to participate in these markets. So we feel like the growth ahead will serve us well as we continue to serve that institutional client.
So it was essential for Ripple to create RLUSD because it's going to be used mainly for P2P transfers, whereas XRP is going to be more so for institutional adoptions by big banks and also large asset managers.
We have pursued in a requested application to apply for
XRP could capture Swift's volume. I feel like they need to release the chain first. That's why they're testing with the banks, guys. If this works with the chains, then they will decide, sure, let's work, worldwide, not just with the banks, but with a lot of other partnerships like companies. Imagine if, I'm just going to say a random company here, but let's say a top 3 company, could be anything, decides to work with XRP. Let's say Walmart. This is going to be the most random one. Of course, they're not working with Walmart, but you get my idea. This could provide billions of revenue saved from Walmart because they are going to not pay all these transfer fees. What is it, like 0.05% or 0.5%? That is a lot of money saved over time for these big companies, especially the more products they save or the more payments they get. If they just pay Ripple something, bam, everybody wins. XRP gets burned.
An OCC license as well as a Fed master account. We think that the key here for crypto and the kind of decentralized finance, as many people call it, Ripple has been building bridges between traditional finance and decentralized finance. The world isn't going to be taken over by crypto. Instead, we think about how do we take the best of what crypto brings in facilitating faster, cheaper transactions and bring it to traditional finance. That's been at the heart of what Ripple has been focused on from the beginning. This is a step towards that, and certainly getting an OCC license. For those that have said that the crypto world wants to be unregulated, whatever, the opposite is true. We are advocating as an industry to be regulated. In addition to the licenses we have with the New York Department of Financial Services, it only continues to augment.
They've been pretty clear they want to work with the U.S. government. They just sat down with Donald Trump for dinner in January, or it was in November or last year, whatever it was. And they literally talked about the future of how they can work with crypto and how they can help the USA. Again, this is a huge step for crypto.
That very robust, very compliance first, trusted partner so that we can continue to use these technologies to benefit consumers and businesses alike.
So the OCC license for XRP is obviously very important if they do want to get integrated into the banking system. As long as XRP is better and far outperforms SWIFT, which it does, then it's going to beat SWIFT and take over that platform, which is obviously going to result in a lot of money coming into XRP. So with the SEC dismissal and the Genius Bill being passed, XRP has a legal framework to be a massive competitor in the cryptocurrency space. This tweet comes from James K. Fallon, and he is one of the lawyers in the SEC versus Ripple case. And we can see he tweeted, "The Second Circuit has approved the joint stipulation of dismissal. And in this document, we can..."
This is a big milestone for Ripple. They had to pay $500 million in lawsuit fees, or not lawsuit fees, but lawyer fees. Around that, it was kind of estimated to pay for that. So again, this is a big milestone because not only for XRP, but the whole crypto. They now know what a security is.
See the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit, the United States Securities and Exchange Commission versus Ripple Labs, and the parties in the above referenced case have filed a stipulation withdrawing this appeal pursuant to FRAP 42. The stipulation is hereby so ordered. Mandate issued August 22, 2025. So who's James K. Fallon? He's a defense lawyer and a former federal prosecutor. And James K. Fallon is a prominent lawyer specializing in cryptocurrency law and securities litigation, known for his significant role in the Ripple versus SEC case. So he has helped a ton in getting this dismissed. So if you are an XRP holder, you know that we have been waiting years for this to occur. This is massive news. This is the best news that we could have received. This means
that, but I feel like ETFs will still be way, way more appreciated.
The SEC is no longer on our back, which is opening the door for so many XRP spot ETFs. And if we look at this list over here, the SEC acknowledged all spot XRP ETFs today. So we have Grayscale, Bitwise, Wisdom Tree, 21 Shares, Franklin XRP Trust, CoinShares, and Canary XRP.
These shares are awesome, and there's also gonna be, you know, the SEC acknowledged all spot ETFs today. So they acknowledged them. I don't think if they confirmed them yet from this news. I got to check on that. I'm pretty sure they are going to confirm them finally in September or October. But again, there's other XRP ETFs out there, but they are not US based. So they don't have the same trading volume. And I feel like the XRP ETFs will go worldwide if BlackRock actually decides to post one. That would be nice.
ETF, and there's a lot more too. So to make things very clear, this does not mean that the SEC accepted. There's only one ETF that the SEC has approved. What you're seeing here is the SEC formally acknowledging in terms of the S1 filings for these spot XRP ETFs. So here's the list.
So that's actually pretty standard procedure when they are going to approve ETFs, just so you guys know.
Of XRP spot ETF filings and final deadlines. So the ProShares Ultra XRP ETF was approved. This is the only one that has been approved so far. So for the Grayscale ETF, we will reach a final decision before October 18, Franklin Templeton before October 25. And so far, there have been 2 XRP spot ETFs that have been delayed, which include REX shares and also volatility shares. We're expected to reach a decision on July 25 for these 2 XRP spot ETFs, but they were delayed by the SEC. But what you can expect with the SEC dismissal is that they're going to further review this, and we'll have a new deadline for these XRP spot ETFs. So with the SEC dismissal, there have been several XRP spot ETFs being filed by asset managers for S1 filings. And one of these asset managers is Grayscale. So we can see here as filed with the SEC on August 22, we have the form S1, Grayscale XRP Trust. So just today with the SEC dismissal, 6 major asset managers have filed for a S1 XRP spot ETF. And this includes Bitwise, Canary Capital, CoinShares, Franklin Templeton, 21 Shares, and Wisdom Tree. And of course, we also have Grayscale. And this all happened today with 6 other asset managers also filing S1 amendments for their own spot XRP ETF proposals on the same day. So the S1 filing is necessary for the SEC to give consideration, and it's essentially a prerequisite for filing for a spot ETF. Now, what changes everything is Jerome Powell. He just hinted at interest rate cuts, which is going to have a massive impact on the economy. So what are 2 things that interest rates cuts do? It stimulates economic growth, and it also helps manage inflation and employment.
That's what I've been calling, guys. rate cuts are going to help, but 25% basis rate cuts are already priced in. However, if we get maybe like, for example, even 2 or 3 rate cuts, again, this would shock the market. Nobody would be expecting that. Everybody is expecting 25 basis points. Nobody's expecting the rate cuts we have right now.
What are the implications for monetary policy?
Like rate cuts.
In the near term, risks to inflation are tilted to the upside and risks to employment to the downside, a challenging situation. When our goals are in tension like this, our framework calls for us to balance both sides of our dual mandate. Our policy rate is now 100 basis points closer to neutral than it was a year ago, and the stability of the unemployment rate and other labor market measures allows us to proceed carefully as we consider changes to our policy stance. Nonetheless, with policy in restrictive territory, the baseline outlook and the shifting balance of risks may warrant adjusting our policy stance. Monetary policy is not on a preset course. FOMC members will make these decisions based solely on their assessment of the data and its implications for the economic outlook and the balance of risks. We will never deviate from that approach.
So he actually did blame the unemployment like getting a bit higher after the firings we had earlier this year with Trump. Or, well, not directly. Jerome Powell is not like that. But that is one of the reasons why we might get rate cuts.
If you guys paid attention closely, he just gave away a massive hint. He said he's going to adjust or potentially look into adjusting their monetary policy. Jerome Powell is not going to flat out say that we are cutting interest rates. If he says that, it's going to have a massive impact on the S&P 500.
The reason why Jerome Powell didn't, actually cut the interest rates and why XRP hasn't gone up is because he was waiting for more data.
NASDAQ and the overall crypto.
Good afternoon.
So he wants to make sure that he regulates it. So at the current moment, federal interest rates are extremely high, sitting at 4.33%. 30-year mortgage loans are sitting around 6.6%, which is causing it to be very difficult for first-time home buyers to purchase a home because the interest rates are simply too high. And here's a federal interest rate graph. We can see that it is sitting at 4.33%. And for 30-year mortgage loans, we're currently at 6.6%.
So anyone in the real estate industry, if interest rates gets cut, that's good for them because that means they can get loans easier. And anyone in like businesses, again, this is probably going to boost the economy. But if you gave interest rates for too little, someone could take out a loan and buy crypto and stuff like that. So it's like a double-edged sword. And I feel like Jerome Powell is kind of like clear that he's going to cut rates. At least people are expecting like a small rate cut, which would definitely still help.
So the last thing that Jerome Powell wants is a recession. It's a careful balancing act between managing inflation and also managing interest rates. And right now, inflation is pretty low. One of the easiest ways to indicate a potential recession is to look at the real GDP, which is the real gross domestic product. If you have 2 consistent quarters of a decline, that can spark recession fears. So in Q1 of this year, we dropped down to 23,000 when we were originally at 23,542. So we dropped about 100 points, but then we had an increase in Q2. So that was not a good sign for the economy, and Jerome Powell paid attention. But what made things worse is a total non-farm payroll employment over the month change. And this is essentially the number of new jobs that are coming out. We can see that April was very low and also June was very low. And in July, there wasn't much change compared to the previous years. So it was only an increase of 73,000. Extremely low. So the best solution, cut interest rates. Also, make sure that you guys join BTC.
So yeah, cut interest rates and ETFs. Again, what's going to happen when we have both of them? Prices are going to go sky high. Also with other news, like we do have, stocks go up. Also XRP goes up. Very bullish on this one, guys. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Michael Saylor also said and exposed XRP's future.
Families.
So yeah, Michael Saylor has actually been talking about, the crypto market in general, not just Bitcoin. He didn't mention XRP indirectly a few times. So I want to see what he actually says. And he has some surprising comments.
Every person on earth should adopt the Bitcoin standard. That's 8 billion people. Every company on earth should adopt the Bitcoin standard. That's 400 million companies. Is there anything?
Again, companies. He mentions companies. Now, he does mention Bitcoin because the main thing he's selling is Bitcoin. But it's very clear what happens if Bitcoin goes up. Usually, crypto markets explode and XRP follows. And a lot of these companies that will be buying the main top 3 cryptos, that will be XRP, Ethereum, and Bitcoin. That's my personal belief, not financial advice.
I can do this better than that. Well, there are a lot of other twists to it. If all of these companies are competing to do something, the issue is what's the something? And it depends on the company. So I think we're very early. I mean, not even 0.1% of companies are doing this, right? If you're a private company and you're raising $10 million in order to fund operating losses, you could just raise 50 million and buy 40 million of Bitcoin and fund 10 million in operating losses. And I would definitely recommend that. That's better, right?
This is important. Institutional adoption of XRP is currently happening faster than that of Bitcoin. And this is primarily due to XRP's specific utility and financial infrastructure. We know that XRP's design is to focus on enabling fast and low cost.
That's why a lot of people call XRP institution coin, because people got mad. The Bitcoin community got mad like a few years ago. Well, it was many moons ago, 6 years, that XRP was working with the banks. And now it's pretty clear that the government wants to regulate crypto fully and tax it. And a lot of these institutions, they will go where they feel safe. And if they don't feel safe with Bitcoin, if they don't feel safe with other coins, they will go to XRP.
Cross-border transactions on a global scale. XRP's main objective is to get integrated into the banking system and also get integrated into companies. They're going to need a system that's going to allow them to send wire transfers all around globally instantly. Right now, the current platform that they're using is Swift. So Bitcoin's institutional adoption is actually happening slower than XRP.
If you're launching a company, a Bitcoin treasury company in Japan, your odds are higher than if you're launching that same company in Venezuela. What's the alternative? You're holding Egyptian pounds in your treasury. So every single Egyptian company that adopts the Bitcoin standard will be more successful than if it didn't, right?
Okay. That's because Bitcoin went up so much. Bitcoin went up while the dollar was going down. This is where I am, excited to see, can XRP do another 100%? Again, a lot of these companies and whales are buying.
Okay, so what does a company rely on? A company relies on revenue, instant cash flow. So in terms of what Michael Saylor is saying, Bitcoin is used as a store of value. Companies are not going to use Bitcoin in terms of transfers globally because it simply takes too long. It takes upward of an hour to send a transaction globally using Bitcoin. And
I fully agree with that. I feel like most of these big companies are looking for banks to finally start using XRP to see how it works, and then they will go, forward with it. Then they will start using XRP themselves.
That's why XRP is getting institutional adoption, because it's fast. It makes sense. It allows for companies and banks to scale their revenue. That is the whole purpose of XRP. How are you going to scale a company's revenue with Bitcoin when it's so slow?
If you're the first company in Japan...
The thing with XRP and the difference between Bitcoin is always going to be stored and never used. But XRP, they're going to use for the bank transfers and to save money. That's going to be the main thing of XRP. It's actually going to have utility. Maybe they will hold a lot of Bitcoin, but they will use XRP to transfer all of that.
Adopt the Bitcoin standard and you grow rapidly and you generate a lot of capital, then not only do you have the most compelling BTC-backed equity in the Japanese capital market, you can have the most compelling BTC credit instruments. Well, there's trillions of dollars in Japan, right? So how many companies in Japan can do that? Well, not every company can be the Amazon of capital markets in Japan, but at least one can be.
Big banks and companies in Japan are embracing XRP, not Bitcoin, for global payments. We can see over here 80% of Japanese banks set to embrace XRP for global payments by 2025. So
it's not just Japanese banks. I feel like it's also Korean banks. There's going to be banks in developing countries, especially where people really do make money from setting out.
Industry leaders, such as the CEO of CBI Group, are strongly backing XRP and its potential to streamline cross-border transactions. And you guys might be wondering, what is the market cap of SBI? Their market cap is 91 billion. So the CEO of SBI stated, real demand for XRP is key to its long-term success, emphasizing and contrasting it with Bitcoin, which he believes lacks inherent value. And this leaves the question, What is Bitcoin's use case in terms of institutional adoption?
If I give you a company making 100 million a year and they adopt Bitcoin and they start buying 100 million worth of Bitcoin, they'll be 10x better. If they borrow $1 billion, they'll be 100x better. If they manage to launch in a 2 market, they'll be 1,000x better. If they screw it up, they won't. Would you invest $500 million of Bitcoin into a company losing 100 million a year that intended to keep losing it? Probably not, right? The Bitcoin treasury company movement is traditional companies trading in the public markets that have adopted the Bitcoin standard. It's not crypto companies.
Okay, so Michael Saylor is not saying it directly, but these companies are buying Bitcoin as a store of value.
And they're going to be using, like, nobody's using the XRP ledger right now, guys, because it's at development stages and they don't want to risk the money of losing everything.
2020.
Well, Ripple spot ETF was just delayed. That's what I also heard. I'll keep you guys updated on that as well.
5, a significant use case for Bitcoin among companies is its integration into corporate treasury reserves. And for why? As a strategic asset for long-term value preservation and inflation hedging. So companies are adopting Bitcoin to hedge against the devaluation of fiat currencies, specifically the dollar. Now let me explain.
I mean, it's gonna be in other countries, didn't like some currencies fall down like 400%. The dollar is looking pretty good. If the currency falls like 300, 400% is when the companies, you know, who could have invested that money into Bitcoin as soon as they got the money, they would have been up like 200%, 300%. So yeah, you do the math, like 300% down or 300% up. So I feel it's a pretty clear idea why the institutional wave is rising, in my opinion.
To you why XRP has a better use case in terms of getting integrated into companies. Consistent revenue is vital for a company's long-term success and sustainability. It serves as a primary indicator of financial health and stability, signaling to investors and stakeholders that the business is capable of generating reliable income over time. So XRP's use case is to expedite global transfers due to its instant payment system. Right now, a lot of companies are using the SWIFT platform, which is heavy in fees and is also very slow. It takes up to 5 days to send over a transfer globally. Companies will be able to scale their revenue by using the XRP ledger. Okay, so what companies have adopted XRP? We see American Express, Bank of America, both of which are banks. We have MoneyTap, Santander, Western.
So this is what I'm trying to show you guys. Look at here. Adopts Ripple for international payments. Ripple helps more access financial services, access Ripple's prospects. So Ripple is offering all of these banks different services. It's not like all of them will use the XRP ledger. Some of them might, but some of them just want their technology that because they can't get it anywhere else.
Union, Bank of Thailand. We also have Amazon Web Services. So why are they adopting XRP? Rapid transaction speed, affordability, efficiency, scalability, and cross-border payment solutions. But the name of the game is on-demand liquidity. XRP bridges fiat currencies to enable faster and cost-effective transactions. Bitcoin is not capable of doing this. It is simply too slow. If you have 1,000 transactions that are happening within a day and it takes upward of an hour to send over a global transfer on Bitcoin, it's going to be very difficult for company A to scale in value. So Michael Saylor is unknowingly promoting XRP's use case. And it's going to take time before XRP is globally adopted, but it's happening very fast. So although XRP is currently sitting at $3 today, it will not surprise me by the end of the year if XRP is trading at $10. And I think XRP is...
I think $10 is going to be hard, but, you know, by the year end. But $7, 100%. 100% growth, you know, from its all-time high, a bit more than that. $6, $5, like $5 and $6 are a pretty good start in my opinion. Like pushing to $10 is going to be way harder because that means it's closing to where Bitcoin is right now. And we already had a huge growth this year. So just consider your expectations realistic.
Going to reach $10 by early next year. If we look at the Bitcoin cycle repeat chart, essentially it's a graph of Bitcoin combined with an analysis of all previous trajectories from the past, and it gives you a prediction of where Bitcoin is headed. So currently we are at a market top, and Bitcoin is expected to reach around 160K before dropping a lot all the way down to 90K. So this is all a prediction. But in this area, when Bitcoin drops, what I expect to happen is everyone's going to take their money out of Bitcoin and they're going to start to invest into altcoins that have an actual use case. So XRP has laid down the fundamentals. They are getting adopted globally. And we also had that SEC case get dropped. So nothing is holding back XRP. So a storm is coming and Michael Saylor just signaled it. Also, make sure that you guys join BTCC to earn free XRP. So if you deposit $500 or more, they will match you. So if you deposit $500, they'll give you $50 in USDT that you can convert into XRP. So
yeah, pretty clear idea of what's happening with crypto right now is we are still in very early stages because we still have the ETF, but we also had, cycles where we went up from 50 cents to $3. So keep that in mind, guys. So XRP spot ETF delayed, and I'm going to explain you why you guys shouldn't panic. This is a pretty quick news that I'm going to be making.
The XRP Bitwise spot ETF was delayed until October 24th, and a lot of people...
And this is totally normal. We see this in crypto all the time. Something gets delayed, and then something suddenly comes back. I'm not too worried about that, as most people are. We saw the same with Ethereum. It got delayed 3 times before it was accepted. And again, this is... Weren't we talking about most of them being in actual, October anyway?
People are absolutely losing their minds, but they seem to forget that there's about 80 different crypto spot ETFs that are waiting to get approved. And most ETF analysts are calling for these to get approved in October of 2025, which is Q4 of 2025. And do you understand how much money that's going to bring into the crypto markets once that gets approved? About $640 billion. Now let's go ahead and talk about Ethereum and do a little bit of comparison here. So first off, generally when Ethereum starts to move, we like to call for altcoin season. Also, if you're taking a look at the Ethereum chart versus Bitcoin.
So yeah, October is when the good news is.
Chart right now, and I know by the time you guys watch this video this may change, but we're seeing Bitcoin drop in value, we're seeing Ethereum pop up in value, as well as a few other altcoins. And with Bitcoin dropping in value, we're also seeing Bitcoin dominance go down. As Bitcoin dominance decreases while Ethereum and other altcoins have sometimes even little teeny tiny positive gains, that generally indicates positive price action for altcoins and could indicate an altcoin season. Yes, I know. Altcoin season in 2025 is going to look a lot different than 2016, 2017, 2020, 2021. And I personally think that a lot of these crypto treasury companies are going to help rein that in, as well as the crypto spot ETFs, because let's face it, a lot of buyers are getting absolutely exhausted.
I mean, like the big thing about crypto spot ETFs is it gives institutions the reason to buy. The Crypto Clarity Act is what the institutions are waiting for to buy them.
People are just tired, okay? But at the end of the day, we essentially need traditional finance to come in. Now let's go ahead and talk about what we're seeing with Ethereum. The Ethereum spot ETFs and the Ethereum treasury funds, well, the companies. Spot Ethereum ETFs post 444 million in daily inflows, outpacing Bitcoin ETFs. This marks 3 days of positive inflows. Inflows mean that people are buying, that there's interest in Ethereum with traditional finance or even retail investors. You guys remember Trump's executive order? The one where it was going to unlock anywhere between $8 and $12.5 trillion of retirement money, 401k money.
So that's just extra money for the crypto, but I don't feel like those 33 trillion for crypto, I don't feel like a lot of that will go to XRP because, 33 trillion might be unlocked, but maybe only, not even 1 trillion will go into the crypto markets. Maybe like 10 billion, 20 billion, 50 billion. If only 0.006% of institutions right now own Bitcoin, which is good. We are in very early adoption stages.
And essentially allow people to diversify into crypto if they choose. Yeah, that's exactly why a lot of these crypto spot ETFs are so important, and the treasury companies, because you could essentially buy a treasury company stock and kind of sort of have direct access or exposure to these cryptos. Kind of, but not. It's a weird thing that happens in traditional finance. But back to the Ethereum spot ETFs. BlackRock's ETH led with 315 million inflows. Bitcoin ETFs saw 219 million inflows, ending a 6-day outflow streak. So Ethereum is winning. And this is also a positive sign for altcoins. It's showing that people do like Bitcoin, but they're also interested in altcoins like Ethereum. And they're also on the sidelines waiting for a lot of these crypto spot ETFs to get approved. XRP, Hedera, Chainlink, Avalanche, Litecoin, Solana, and many, many others. And Tom Lee, you guys remember him, right?
Yeah.
He has acquired about $10 billion in Ethereum over the past 50 days, which is over 1.7 million Ethereum and approximately 1.4% of all Ethereum supply. Tom Lee has came out and talked about acquiring 5% of all of Ethereum. And a lot of people are referring to Bitmine as the strategy of Ethereum, Michael Saylor's strategy. Anyways, I just wanted to drop some perspective to some of you that are getting really, really exhausted with the market and remind you just to be patient. Public servants are going to public servant, but at the end of the day, we're going to get a lot of these crypto spot ETFs approved, and it's going to inject a lot of liquidity into the market. And again, with a lot of these treasury companies, they're going to be investing in crypto assets that become crypto spot ETFs and adding them to their treasury.
I mean, look at what happened with Bitcoin and Ethereum. If we want to see, they literally grew to next level stages as they had a spot ETF. Bitcoin was at 18,000 before it get to 120,000 when it was listed. So if we want to even see the chance of XRP hitting $5, we need to get through October and we need to see those spot ETFs, guys. This is the first step of $10 XRP. But there is 6 reasons why XRP could see massive gains in the next 4 months. Look at this. This is what I want to tell you guys.
You ready for a bullish XRP video? We've got you covered, guys, right here, right now. In this one, we're going to give you a full list, 6 reasons why I am so bullish on XRP over the next 4 to 6 months, followed by a look at where we are currently on the charts. So if you guys are ready, lock in for that. Let's dive in. Make sure you...
It's pretty clear that the bull market is coming, and there's not just one price indicator, but 5 of them or 8 of them or 10 of them. And that's a very important factor. It's not just the ETFs, like in 2021, it was one bull run, like the crypto coming back, but in the others, we have 10 times more awesome news, guys. That is the most important factor. We have so much more good news and potential in that sense.
Guys, hit me with an X or an XRP right now in the comment section so I know you guys are live, so I know you guys are here. We're talking about XRP, price potential, bullish scenarios, what is exciting right now about XRP, Ripple, etc. We've got you covered. Smash that like button. Let's run this thing up. I want this thing to reach the masses. And let's get into it. Why XRP could be the strongest investment of any top 10 crypto right now over the next 4 to 6 months. Let's start right at the top. Number 1, regulatory clarity in the United States of America. Ripple already scored a major win versus the SEC back in 2023 when XRP was deemed not a security. Now, we're working out the kinks on the institutional side, and the market expects a final resolution completely soon. Looks like they're just going to pay a fine. This is going to potentially open the door for institutional adoption. And right alongside that, how we're going to get that institutional adoption, what it looks like, well, we got to talk about the XRP ETF buzz. That's number 2. With BTC and ETH ETFs already approved, XRP is among the next candidates for approval. Deadline.
I mean, I feel like the ETFs are not priced in yet, guys, because we haven't seen ETFs really do in that sense. We haven't seen ETFs, like we don't know what their price potential is, right? It's going to enter a price discovery. That's why everyone's excited about ETFs, because obviously rate cuts are priced in. Everybody's expecting them. But the ETFs, you can only predict how much money is coming in, right? And that's what scares a lot of these whales into buying XRP, because they don't know if the gain is going to be 100% or it's going to be 200 or 50% or 10%. Nobody knows.
Are approaching, coming up in October. Even the speculation of an ETF for XRP right now is driving strong retail and institutional flows. What's going to happen when we actually have an ETF for XRP? This could certainly be a bullish catalyst. Number 3 is Ripple and what they're doing in the partnership game, what they're doing in the acquisition game. Ripple has ties with global banks, payment providers, governments even, and they've
been building these partnerships like for years before we actually saw it happen.
On-demand liquidity usage is growing like crazy. This is showing us that there's real-world utility beyond speculation. Their recent acquisition of Hidden Road was massive. Recent partnership with Gemini for the XRP card, giving 4% cash back rewards. This is creating real, growing utility for the XRP token. Then we've got to get into number 4, the macro tailwinds. The Fed right now is signaling interest rate cuts, guys. This historically is very, very bullish for crypto, very bullish for risk on assets. We usually see that when the Fed decides to cut interest rates, historically it drives capital into risk on assets like crypto. Liquidity injection.
Now, I feel like the rate cuts here are already priced in. That's the thing. A lot of people don't understand that. Rate cuts, for me, in my opinion, are already priced in.
Benefit utility-driven assets like XRP, and I think they're going to really, really help those assets that are ISO compliant, which XRP is. Those assets that are US-based, which XRP is. Those assets that are RWA focused. Checks all the boxes.
Yeah, this is where XRP wins. It predicted what the country or the government needs or what these companies need. They need something fast to make these transfers happen. And now that they're offering this, they really control the game. They are finally profitable. It's looking good for them. Again, it's very hard for a lot of these companies to even get close to making any set of money. They just have ideas. A lot of these companies failed, but XRP is still there, still going strong.
And then we got to talk about the technical setup. That's number 5. XRP is consolidating right now under major resistance levels. We'll take a look at the chart here in just a minute. And a breakout back up above the $3 level with some force could trigger a strong rally. We're toying around with that $3 psychological level right now, trying to get our feet from under us. The whole market is, but the technical setup still looks very good. We're comfortably above our 200-day moving average, which is the most key moving average to watch when you're looking at the macro wins. Now, lastly, I want to talk about the global payments narrative for a minute. All right. I want to talk about the global payments narrative. Cross-border payments are broken, slow, and expensive right now. Everybody knows it. Ripple and XRP are the best positioned as the bridge currency for, yes, CBDCs and international transactions. Any big government announcement here could be a moonshot catalyst that could take us to higher levels. Now, I'm not saying that XRP is going to $1,000, $100 tomorrow. That's not my flavor. We were accumulating XRP at 50-cent levels. I think there are strong reasons. I just gave you 6 why XRP could be a strong investment play in the next 4 to 6 months.
Now, here's where XRP could fail, but it probably won't. It has over 900 employees. This is where it really wins. And 900 employees, and it has competition now. 5 years ago, it didn't have competition. I don't personally feel like, anything will happen to not become first. I feel like it's gonna be like Bitcoin and Ethereum, XRP is number 1, and then there's other cryptos that are number 2.
And why I think XRP could break out. Do I still think we can get to $7 to $10 this cycle? Yes, I still like those levels. Those levels I still like a lot. But let's dive into the chart here and see what kind of story this is showing us here. And I'll put myself right there, give a nice little vantage point here. This is the daily chart on XRP, guys. You can see here we're kind of just coiling up right around the $3 level currently. We've been as low today as 286. Yesterday, right in the same range. We've closed down to 275 a couple different times here in the last month. But all in all, we're pretty much range bound. We've popped up to 335, almost 340 a couple times. But The real story here is that XRP is showing strength after the big move up from $2. We couldn't get off that $2 level for a really long time. Then we got really cooking. This was the buy signal down in here at 240. We went from 240, all the way in a 2-week span up to 355, 360. That was a 47% move. If you were an XT Algo member, you were all over this. You guys can still get in.
This is still where the whales are picking it up. So because whales are picking it up over here, I'm still feeling confident. If the whales start selling and go to $2 territory, that's where I would start to feel a bit worried for XRP. But again, whales have shown that they are buying in big.
XT Algo, by the way, that's our trading software.
So yeah, you get a pretty clear idea that it's nothing bad is happening right now for XRP to suddenly go to $2. Again, economy has never been that good. They're finally profitable. This is not financial advice, guys. But it is pretty clear to me that XRP has been in this moment where it really outperforms other cryptos, even Bitcoin and Ethereum combined. So don't be afraid when the prices drip.
XRP holder.
But XRP holders, it's over. I'm going to be telling you guys right after. Just give me 1 minute.
XRP holders, you must prepare. What is over? What must you prepare for? Well, I'm going to talk about that in today's video. You see, there is something egregious going on right now. XRP is the solution to this problem. We're going to cover what's going on here. So we should all know that US federal debt is a big problem and one of the main drivers of the devaluation of currency. Because the way that the US government deals with debt, generally speaking, is increased spending and money printing. This is how they essentially grow this bubble over time, increase inflation, devalue your currency, and make your savings absolutely worthless. And you can see that this problem with US federal debt is expediting. It's getting substantially worse than it ever has in history. And so I want to talk about this because if this does not slow down, the rate in which your currency will lose value will only go faster from here, which means that you holding any amount of US dollar, Canadian dollar, any fiat currency in the world is a surefire way to lose all of your wealth, which seems completely counterintuitive because wealth is derived from how much money you have, right? Well, money is changing and money is about to change forever. This is why you must listen. Over the last...
Yeah, so I feel like because of the federal debt government, the government is going to try to take back with, trying to find other sources of how they can make more revenue. And one of them, it is going to be the one I have been telling you about, investing big in technology. So that's the most important factor. They've been investing in technology, but the last 48 days, 48 days, 1 trillion is a lot of money, 21 billion per day. They're trying to set this back, of course, by firing people. But the other one is this big thing that, they're going to try to get XRP partnerships and stuff like that.
48 days, the U.S. federal debt has surged by over $1 trillion to over $21 billion per day. It's the last 48 days, okay? That is an insane number to look at. Since August 11th, the U.S. has added over $200 billion in debt. Why is U.S. government spending running at a World War II level?
I mean, yeah, if Trump went on WLFI coin, which is like its own stable coin, he has invested in crypto. I don't feel like crypto is gone. Someone said XRP is annoying. It's been years and years of waiting and waiting. That's because XRP needs years and years of development, really. When you look at it, these type of developments take years of development. That's why no other company has done it yet. That's why they're in testing phases. Making a whole technology is super hard.
In a strong economy? Well, that's a fantastic question. When we look at this chart right here, this is World War II spending. Of course, federal spending went through the roof at this time. This is today.
That's true, but you also have to consider there is more money coming in now. Like, I feel like this type of money, U.S. government expenditures right now, of course, the government is spending a lot of money. That's very true. But there's also more money in circulation and in the world, so I kind of expect that to happen. It's easier for the US government to reinvest the money. So it's much easier to reinvest the money than like 2009 to the 20th century.
2025. This is where we're at pretty much. And it's continuously going up. You can see we hit records during this era right here, the COVID.
Now, this is what a lot of people don't realize. When the US government spends money, like, for example, defense budgets, that literally creates economy. That gives people jobs.
Era. And it's looking like we're going to be on pace to get back there. The U.S. is now spending 44% of GDP per year, which is in line with both WW2 and the 2008 levels, of course, when we had that massive debt bubble. Meanwhile, the Fed is calling for a soft landing, and the U.S. is touting a strong economy, which might seem kind of strange. Just 2 weeks ago, $37 trillion in debt was a headline. Now we are 20% closer to $38 trillion. Strange. We're adding.
So yeah, while their debt is bigger, there's also more money in the world. I'm not sure if 1 trillion, but this is something they're trying to prevent.
They're just a month and a half later, another $1 trillion in debt. We are now 10 months into fiscal year 2025, and the U.S. deficit is up $1.63 trillion. This is $109 billion above levels seen in fiscal year 2024, and it's only getting worse. We are on track to run $2 trillion plus deficits as debt rises along with interest rates. Just look at July. In July 2025 alone, the U.S. posted a $291 billion deficit. This is the second largest deficit for any July on record. The deficit is now up 7.4% year over year to $1.63 trillion, putting this year on track for the third largest deficit ever seen in history. Yet the U.S. keeps spending away. And so the situation that we're
I feel like the U.S. government is spending right now, again, it's not really spending, it's reinvesting. It's reinvesting in defense budgets, it's reinvesting in technology, it's reinvesting even if they work with XRP and one project, that's going to cost them money. But they know they can get that money back. Of course, the U.S. government, as long as it's profitable, that's the thing. It's never going to be, a big problem for them. But the deficit is getting bigger.
Finding ourselves in is really simple when you break it down. The U.S. spending is completely out of control. The spending is only going up from here. The money printer is about to go back on, and currency is about to be devalued even further. And
that's why a lot of people started buying crypto because, again, not financial advice, but XRP has grown up 600% while probably lost like 5% of value or 10% the dollar in the last few months.
Comes at a time where companies are actually seeing record levels of profits. Not the small guys, the big guys. The big guys are making more money. The small businesses are not really making much more at all. They're just kind of keeping up with inflation. We'll get into that in just 1 second and what that means for XRP. But I also want to cover the fact that the public confidence in the Fed chair is also near record lows. And this is showing the general sentiment across America and the rest of the world. Only 37% of U.S. adults say they have a great deal or a fair amount of confidence that the Fed chair will do the right thing for the economy. That's a very small amount. For Powell, now in his second term as chair, this is the second worst reading. By comparison, confidence peaked at 58% in 2020. In this century, the only other time confidence was this low was during Janet Yellen's term in 2014. The Fed is facing a crisis in confidence as well.
I mean, this is not a big problem because Jerome Powell is set to retire, I think, like May 2025, and that's because he didn't do rate cuts. The reason why he didn't do rate cuts is literally to not create a recession. Because if there was a bad type of news, this could create basically a long year recession and the bull market would be canceled. So yeah, people are going to be this confidence is probably going to be returning once Jerome Powell confirms the rate cuts that people have been waiting for, that Trump has been calling for.
And this is precisely why Fed Chair Powell has caved. Because systematically, every single one of his governors on the Federal Reserve are being removed and replaced with people that are pro-rate cuts, and he's not really going to be left with any choice in the matter.
I mean, it's a lot of pressure for him as well. He wants to make the right decision.
Come next month, or the month after that. So it's looking like Fed Chair is going to start cutting rates. But this once again begs the question, what's going to happen with the U.S. debt? If he cuts rates and the money printing continues, inflation continues, if government spending continues at these rates as well, the debt's going to continue to grow at these levels. The government's going to have to stop spending anywhere near the amount it is right now in order for inflation, all these other things to get in check. But there's no signs of them doing so. They're signing these massive spending bills into law, and they're just...
Isn't it they are trying to prevent that already, like doing rate cuts, increasing tax, things like that? But yeah, obviously it's a very big problem because this can happen, but it's not like if the the thing I'm wondering is U.S. could have repaid the 36 trillion or could never repay that. So if it is a problem now, wasn't it a problem before when they were like 30 trillion in debt? It was a problem, but it was not that like a game changer problem to change the bull markets.
Going at it. That's just the way that it's going. But during this period of time, there's also something that's really interesting that's happening. And it also gives all of us the ability to actually get out of this scot-free and be okay, which is absolutely incredible. Earnings of the Magnificent Seven companies have surged over 145% since ChatGPT was introduced in November of 2022.
That's what I'm telling you. Technology and AI is going to be big. Anything development, anything good for society, like XRP, those are the biggest gainers right now. Done are the times where meme coins and retail were strong. I really feel like that utilities were the biggest gainers, which you can see by the charts. And, stuff like AI is just the icing on the top, especially in a video like chips, anything that, is going to help future.
What we're seeing is the top companies in the world have their earnings absolutely exploding following the introduction of AI. And so what this essentially tells us is integrating AI into your range of services and using this technology can save you an immense amount of money, skyrocket your earnings, grow the stock, and I think that's probably the main way that people are going to be escaping this inflation in the traditional finance world. But even better, I think that we should go to the root of this problem. Why is this an issue? Why do we have to go into stocks and real estate in order not to lose all of our money? Well, it's actually quite...
That's the thing, yeah. A lot of people don't know how to reinvest, and they lost tons, and they don't understand. They still say, after 2 years, they still say, oh, I have $2,000, but now they suddenly see the prices are getting more expensive, which is a very big problem. Why do you have... What sort of investment is to put it into stocks? I feel like this was the last, 100 years anyway. But it should be that the dollar always stays strong. I feel like with more printing, that is never going to happen. That is like wishful thinking, right? People will always keep reinvesting their money, which is good for you because that means the stock markets will keep going up.
What is the issue? It's the Fed. It's the currency. It's the fiat currency. We need a new financial system. Imagine if every single company operated on a currency that didn't inflate. Well, then...
Now, that's what I don't agree with, because literally the thing with inflation is every single currency I know so far is printing money. And as long as you're printing money, that's how there's going to be like an inflation, right? And people need more money to get more jobs. That's how the government works. It's printing it, but if you made a limited supply, yeah, that's why people are calling, for stable coins to become a global currency. There you have another issue. The currency could still be deflated or inflated. You just wouldn't notice it.
Us as consumers would only invest into the companies that are actually producing something for society and, growing the economy in a way that's net beneficial for everyone. We're not just going to be throwing our money into all these ETFs in hopes that we don't lose our money. We're actually going to be making smarter decisions on what we want. And so this is why I very strongly believe that the entire stock market, everything should be run on cryptocurrency. And the way to escape inflation, the way to have smart money that's not going to absolutely explode is to look into cryptocurrency. That is my personal opinion, not financial.
I feel like this won't work, because even if you make a currency that doesn't have inflation or make a worldwide currency, it's going to be very hard for people to agree in it. And even if it's always at $1, think about it. If real estate rises, somebody is going to be willing to sell you the real estate for less. It just doesn't solve any problems. It's not deflation. It's literally that everything is getting so expensive. This is the bigger problem. You know, it's a very deep problem, and it's not just simply doing a currency. But the XRP card was launched, and again, 3% in dining, 2% groceries, 1% everything else. Earn up to 4% back on every purchase with no annual fee. And I guess they get like what, XRP. Again, I'm not sponsored by them, but cashback cards are a big thing in US, and it's nice to see XRP finally joining the army. You know, I feel like it's a good marketing strategy from Gemini.
They just launched their XRP credit card. We're seeing XRP starting to get accepted internationally for different sorts of payments, whether that be with airfare, cross-border payment solutions, through universities that are using this technology and experimenting with it. It makes me extremely confident that the future is very close. And it makes me extremely excited for what that future is going to be. And so, yeah, I look at the technicals and, I do see some really interesting things here. One, we just touched the bottom resistance line, which is a very bullish sign that we're ready to move back up. Two, I look at the daily stochastic RSI chart. We see that we're trending in this median zone right here, which signals that we could potentially also be in a pretty good zone right now to look to potentially accumulate. And yeah, I'm just going to wait for us to touch.
That's what I'm bullish on it. The whales are buying. I'm not too scared about this. The whales buying is the big thing. Like, as long as the whales buy, I'm going to trust them, right?
We've got
and whales are still buying, which is pretty good, and it's still positive news. So nothing needs to be changed. If it works, it doesn't need changing. Of course, yes, the depth is getting bad, but is it going to change the economy? No, because they don't have to repay this debt. If they didn't have to pay it to 30 trillion, why would they pay it to 37 trillion? XRP US adoption happens once. This will only happen once, XRP holders.
Some breaking news to cover, as well as some comments. Will XRP even care if a bear market comes? I want to talk to you about that. We had some excellent...
And that's what I told you guys. Once bear market comes for XRP, it's not going to be that scary as 2020 because they're still developing. Even if the prices go down, there's still going to be news, there's still going to be updates, and there's still going to be XRP burns. I feel like they're kind of preparing for that. They have a big reserve as well.
Comments in our recent video, as well as a comment that came out 12 days ago, I want to touch on and put a personal message out on. We've got XRP sitting at $2.97, up 0.3% at the time of this recording, seeing some net inflows and some volume coming in. Nothing crazy, but about half hour ago from the time of this recording, we did hear breaking. The U.S. Commerce Secretary Lucknick announces that the U.S. will be officially issuing economic data on blockchain beginning with GDP data. So this is a big thing. The U.S. government.
So again, the U.S. government has been going big on crypto, not just because it can make money, but because they see actual technology and use cases. And this is what the crypto community has been trying to tell the government, right? And now we see it happening. Now we see it starting. I'm really excited for that once it happens.
Government is officially embracing blockchain tech. And I like this comment below that states, this is huge news for transparency and innovation. Thrilled to see GDP on blockchain. Can't wait to watch how this changes data and access. And this is just the thing. Those naysayers, those haters of this market that think we're all going to fall off a cliff and going to a multiple year bear market, they're not seeing what's happening in front of us. And this is a complete shift. We're seeing this technology adopted and moving forward faster than ever. It's apparent, it's obvious. And along with that, CME Group, maybe you've heard, maybe you haven't, which is one of the largest exchanges in the world, posted here recently the XRP futures hit 1 billion, that's with a B, in open interest in just 3 months.
Now, the biggest important factor from this news is the Korean markets, guys. It's not just USA. Korean markets are hitting it big in XRP. There's a lot of trading volume going on there, and there's going to be a lot in other countries. That is why XRP has a major advantage over other cryptocurrencies, in my personal opinion, is because they are getting support from Asia, not just USA, Asia ETFs could be kicking in. And again, there are very rich countries, very wealthy countries buying into XRP.
This is the quickest contract to reach this benchmark ever. And so we're not just seeing institutional interest, we're seeing strong institutional interest. And that's only going to grow. And we know what's coming in a couple months with those ETFs. Now, recently, or this morning actually, in the video that I put out, I talked a little bit about how some of the big YouTubers are kind of pushing this narrative on red days, specifically red days, that we're moving into a bear market, a multi-year bear market, and how I think that is absolute insanity based on what we have coming to us with law, adoption, integration, and so forth. But a lot of folks in the comment section put out some really good points that we've touched on here in the past about how XRP doesn't care. XRP doesn't care if we go into a bear market because this is a utility use case cryptocurrency that is attached to more institutions around the world, around the globe.
That's the thing, guys. XRP is finally profitable since 2024. It was not profitable before. It had to sell XRP. Again, in 2024, Ripple announced, from my research, that they are finally profitable, which is what companies have to be in order to not go bankrupt. Otherwise, they had to sell your XRP coins. They literally had to sell them on the market, right? So this is where XRP wins. It does not only rely on crypto, it actually expanded into other factors as well, into other markets.
Than any other cryptocurrency, and that's a full stop. That is not debatable. And so this is a sleeping giant. This is an absolute beast that a lot of people are going to wake up to in a big way. Now, we did have 12 days ago a comment come out, and this was on a red day as well. I'm having a terrible day. I left work because I can't stand being in a place where everybody does stuff wrong. Think we've all been there, right? I need XRP to take me away from this hellhole. I truly 100% do believe it will, because opportunities come and go. Situations like what we have right now, a full digital revolution, transformation in finance, it's not going to happen multiple times throughout our life, right?
I mean, it's not going to happen overnight either. I feel like it's very important to say that this is going to take years, guys. It might take up to 10 years. It's not going to be, overnight that this really makes XRP suddenly gets accepted as a worldwide currency, as some people tell you. It is going to take some time, and that's fine with me. Even if it takes one year, 2 years, 5 years, I'll be here.
It's not going to happen for many generations to come. This is a huge, huge opportunity in front of us. And so what I said to this person, I'll say to you all that are maybe feeling discouraged on red days, is the fact that you are in puts you ahead of the masses. 99% of those folks in the world that have no idea what is happening in the world today and how we are seeing a shift in finance. And so, we all have bad circumstances throughout our lives. I just lost my brother a couple years ago. OGs of this community know that. That was a big reason why I moved back to family here in Indiana, to allow for my 3-year-old to have some time with my folks, to, allow them to heal in the process and so forth. And hard times come and go for all of us. We have family members or friends that may pass away. We may have financial hardship or jobs that we hate like this, but opportunities, they come and go. And we have to understand what is in front of us with XRP.
XRP is going to keep building. It's been building since 10 years. Like most of the guys are saying, why hasn't the price changed? It has changed. But every time it changed, it had to be sold because of the lawsuit. That's literally the deal. It had to be sold. The lawsuit really destroyed it. But here's where XRP could really win. Like with the lawsuit over, with them being profitable.
We just got some breaking.
They have a big, big update on the way.
Economic data on blockchain, beginning with GDP data. Let's go.
Department of Commerce is going to start issuing its statistics on the blockchain, because you are the crypto president, and we are going to put out GDP on the blockchain so people can use the blockchain for data distribution, and then we're going to make that available to the entire government so all of you can do it. We're just ironing out all the details so we can do it.
So yeah, pretty clear on what's going on. The US government is slowly taking their look at crypto, and they might actually double down very hard, especially if some of the regulation like the Crypto Clarity Act passes. I'm definitely excited for that. This is where XRP already has a foot in the door, so can I say, because what they did is they had a meal with Donald Trump. A lot of crypto companies cannot do that. I will keep you guys updated on that one as well. Let's check out this one. This is bigger than you think. XRP has changed forever overnight.
Breaking news on the institutional adoption side for XRP. And guys, in my opinion, this is going to do massive things to the price of XRP in the very near future. In this video, I want to share with you some very, very bullish news that not a lot of people are talking about quite yet. Guys, there are some things going on in the background that I believe that the ETFs being launched for XRP.
That's what I told you guys. I feel like XRP has a lot of partnerships, a lot of speculation, but there is really thoughts of stuff that XRP cannot reveal because it would pump the price. They are literally trading secrets that Ripple cannot show us yet.
Might be record-breaking for this industry. Like always, your support means so much to this channel. Thank you to everyone who takes the time to like these videos and subscribe to the channel. These two simple things really do help me out so much. Also, if you ever need a good place to buy some XRP, make sure to check out my favorite exchange, Uphold, down in the description of this video. Quality stablecoin.
Look who just popped into top 100 on CoinMarketCap. I think I know where this is going. Ripple is no ordinary company. Ripple USD. And again, people have been saying, what's the use case of Ripple USD? Here you have it. This shows you that the big corporations, big institutions are using it.
And that's exactly what Ripple is delivering with RLUSD. Right now, we see that the XRP ledger is likely the best chain out there when it comes to creating liquidity for issued assets. And RLUSD is going to be a premier stablecoin and a premier dollar-denominated unit in the cryptocurrency world on a fast and efficient blockchain. It's very cool to see RLUSD popping into the top 100. And for those of you who think RLUSD is replacing XRP or is a bad thing for the XRP ledger, make sure that you understand that the XRP ledger was created for the purpose of tokenizing assets. In the very early days, the Ripple team got together and made it very clear that they didn't think fiat currency was going away. They also don't think that the governments are just going to let decentralized cryptocurrency assets be the only assets that matter in the world.
I mean, Ripple is really going to be used by banks. It's going to be used by corporations, and it's not going to replace, its plan is not to replace XRP or Ripple or whatever. It's just to sort of add itself into the brand new ecosystem, right? So this is how Ripple works. Ripple is like a big chain of transfers that banks are going to be connected to. And then these stable coins are going to be used as dollars, kind of like dollars, but not really. Then you're going to have XRP's use case for burning each time someone sends this very cheap transaction. So XRP is going to be deflationary, which is awesome news, right? So just a quick recap if you guys don't know. And if you guys have anything more to add, let me know down in the comments below. And smash that like button if you haven't already. Really appreciate you.
Because of that, Ripple made it so the XRP ledger was created for tokenized assets like RLUSD. RLUSD is a centralized dollar-denominated unit and a tool on the XRP ledger. It's not a replacement for XRP. RLUSD, nor could any other fiat-issued government currency exist on the XRP ledger without XRP. XRP is a critical component to make these issued assets like RLUSD work and add value to the new economic system being created. So just understand, XRP is critical core infrastructure. RLUSD is a tool on top of that infrastructure. As we see RLUSD grow, it's more and more financial institutions using XRP and the XRP ledger. With that said, though, I want to get into some big news on institutional adoption for XRP and something.
Institutional adoption. Now, this is where the big money comes in. It's not retail, guys, because who has more money? Institutions or retail? I feel like it's institutions, obviously. They're the ones bringing all the revenue from the companies, and they need to place it somewhere. place this revenue they are getting into some type of market.
And I believe is going to shock the market over the long run. And that has to do with the XRP ETFs. Now, something that was reported just the other day that I think a lot of people really didn't pay attention to is the fact that we had actually mass refilings of the XRP ETF. Now, I follow a lot of different analysts in the TradFi space, and every single one of them sees this as an extremely bullish sign that the XRP ETF is very close.
This is the same thing that happened with Ethereum, being updated by issuers. This is actually a positive case. It means we'll look at them after the vacations are over. So all these ETFs, they're probably going to be confirmed all at once or all denied at the same time. And it's leaning towards all being confirmed, especially since we already got through the regulation issues with Bitcoin and Ethereum. Like, the hard part is done, guys.
And let's not forget, there's about 18 of these things in the pipeline already. Now, the big question is, how much demand will these XRP ETFs cause? Something very interesting put out by JP Morgan was that they predict anywhere from $3 to $8 billion in inflows. Now, based off of what XRP is getting with inflows right now, guys, this would be a complete shock to the amount of money coming into XRP. But guys, we might have another very interesting indicator, and that is what is happening right now on the CME. If we take a look at the CME right now in terms of the futures-based contracts, we can see that right now XRP is the fastest growing futures contract the CME has ever released. Now, this is pretty funny because a lot of people have said, oh, XRP holders, it's just a whole bunch of bots. No one actually holds XRP. It's all fake volume. Well, we just got our first institutionalized product for the largest financial institutions in the world to be able to get exposure to XRP. And guess what?
I mean, we also have treasuries coming in. We have the Korean streamers streaming about XRP. It is not just that. I feel like it was pretty obvious that the whales are buying XRP. Like, if you buy something, obviously you need the money for it. So nobody was saying it was fake, but it did not surpass Ethereum trading volume yet.
But it turns out to be one of the most successful products, or the most successful product ever launched by the CME. Now, guys, I think the XRP ETFs are going to do almost this.
That's because of the community. Like, the more community there is, which XRP has a lot, the more the coin is bound to explode according to some data analytics.
Same exact thing. I believe they will likely be the fastest growing ETF to hit the market. And I believe the net inflows are going to actually blow out of the water a lot of the initial predictions. What we're seeing right now is the institutional demand to acquire XRP is real. And I think it has to do with a lot of the narratives we have been talking about. A lot of these big financial institutions are looking for something that makes sense to them. They all have problems moving money in with their traditional financial system architecture. It's very easy for them to conceptualize why something like XRP would be important and why they would want to invest into it. A lot of these large financial institutions are just starting to learn about cryptocurrency. And because of that, when you go to them with all these super advanced niche use cases like gaming or NFTs, right? Like, those kinds of things just don't resonate with them. But when you have something that is adding obvious and clear utility to processes and problems that they can already see in the traditional financial system, and when they can see Ripple with a board of directors of professionals on it.
I mean, this is just building up its sources. Like, more and more of these big bank partnerships, they take a lot of trust. Like, banks need a lot of trust, and that's why they built this trust over 10 years. And now this is just another one of those, like, 1 billion in open interest. When you, like, say to a company, this is going to bring in more people in. It's going to be like a butterfly effect, basically. Or it's going to be like an exposure effect. When you get a first partnership with Bank of America, you say, we already partner up with Bank of America. Lots more of these will be coming in.
That can actually solve these problems and drive long-term adoption is going to make them extremely bullish on an asset like XRP. So I just think the narrative and the positioning is all absolutely perfect. A lot of these people on these traditional brokerages are going to be looking for exposure outside of Bitcoin. When you start going through the narratives of XRP being a US-based cryptocurrency and all these other things in terms of the institutions actually understanding what XRP could be used for to solve a real-world problem, you start to paint a very interesting picture where you can see XRP ETFs adding massive demand to XRP inflows. Now, if you've been following XRP inflows at all right now, you would know that about every single dollar being invested into XRP right now is causing the market cap to move about 500 times higher. So if you have billions of dollars being...
And this is when the big whales could really be moving. Like, that's what I've been calling with ETFs. If you have ETFs coming in, that is a lot of money that is potentially going to be coming into these crypto markets just because of the ETF inflow.
Invested into these XRP ETFs, you could see a scenario where the XRP market cap was easily moving by trillions. It's so important to realize that the way market cap works is it's not every single dollar invested equals a dollar increase in market cap. In fact, it's a much more complex equation, and every single dollar invested in XRP causes a significantly more dramatic rise in the price of XRP. So these are all very, very good signs, all lining up to show that we are right around the corner from something potentially very big.
That's why people have been calling for ETFs, because if you have ETFs, again, lots of money coming in, which means the price is going up. Even if whales sell because of the ETF news, there's going to be still tons of retail coming in, tons of institutions with the new Crypto Clarity Act.
Big for XRP. Now, if you take a look at the XRP price chart, I think it is signaling that exact thing. This is probably one of the most bullish charts in all of cryptocurrency.
Now, I don't believe these price charts personally. Why? Because this is 2017. And again, if you've been in crypto, you know 8 years is pretty long time. It's like a generation. And also, this chart from at its highest, look at this. We saw the same chart over here at 2019, right? I could advocate for the same chart in 2021. This is the thing I'm trying to say to you guys is right now this is post lawsuit. The lawsuit went from 2020 to 2024. 2024 lawsuit over here pumped it. So I feel like these charts are not that, realistic, but let's keep watching.
The XRP price chart is a thing of beauty, and it's one of my favorite parts about XRP. It's like not only are the fundamentals excellent, not only is the institutional adoption real, not only is Ripple executing tremendously on all fronts, but just take a look at this price chart. I mean, it is one of the most bullish price charts you can see on a cryptocurrency asset. You have these long-term periods of consolidations and then these hyper vertical rises of explosive volatility. Guys, this thing is playing out tremendously, and it looks like we are right around the corner from some of these XRP ETF inflows from sending this thing absolutely parabolic. I know a lot of people want it to happen yesterday. They want these things to already have taken place, but let me tell you, once it's said and done, everyone's going to be saying the complete opposite thing. They're going to be saying, I wish I had more time. I wish it didn't move so fast. I wish it dipped back.
That's the thing. Right now, that's what the whales are doing. They're accumulating. They know what's about to happen, right? They know when it's happening and why it's happening. And personally, it's a pretty clear idea of why they are buying. Because we are now at 2018 prices. And again, with the lawsuit over, why are we still at 2018 prices if we literally saw 2 market cycles? Just think about it. Okay, not financial advice, but 2018 prices, post-lawsuit, didn't let Ripple grow at all. Actually made it dip a lot. Now, we literally saw 2 halvings. So yeah, it makes sense.
Down. That's what people always say. Trust me. I was talking to people all through this 20 to 30 cent range, right? All of them wanted XRP to rip. XRP rips. And then they're all saying, oh, well, I wish it took a little longer because I was still purchasing XRP. It always feels like forever when stuff's not happening. Then things happen and you look back and you said, I always knew this was going to happen. This was always the outcome I thought was going to happen, but I just didn't trust that it would happen so quickly. When you're waiting, it feels like it's taking forever. Then it happens and it's all behind you. The chance is gone. So I just think that's something very interesting to be paying attention to, because I think when you take a look at all the catalysts coming for XRP, this outcome is, in my opinion, outside of some black swan completely derailing everything, crashing financial market.
I don't even think we can get a black swan event. It's like a non-zero chance, but at this point, it is not that scary. Because again, at this point, it's looking like XRP has everything lined up. It has all of the news lined up. Again, long-term holders, big money back, all of the whales selling, like a lot of these whales bought back.
These initial massive pump we actually had a decent amount of outflows coming out of XRP. This is normal. A lot of people have billions of dollars invested in XRP. When XRP goes up, they take some profits and then they reaccumulate. And it looks like we are back in the reaccumulation stage. We're seeing these net inflows come back.
Obviously, these whales want to buy back, you know, because they expect a rally. I don't think they're buying back because they expect the price to drop. Who knows?
Green, we're seeing more capital going into XRP. And guys, that's not even with these massive ETFs that are clearly going to have a ton of institutional buy.
Guys, smash that like button. We are 4 subscribers off from 56,000 subscribers. So smash that like, and I appreciate you all. Like, look at where we got with XRP. It's absolutely unbelievable.
Pressure. Guys, everything to me looks like it's lining up perfectly. I never thought we'd be here so quickly. This new administration is paving the road for cryptocurrency mass adoption. And I think a lot of the things we've been waiting for are happening right in front of us. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed this episode.
I think it's pretty clear that the ETFs are going to be the main driver for XRP. But there's also like the rate cuts are going to kind of help it. So I think personally, we are going to be seeing XRP going up. Now, how long this will last, I don't know. But many cycles more is going to probably give you more opportunities. Again, there's going to be more opportunities for XRP to go up and down. It's not just going to go, you know, to 10,000 overnight. So also keep that in mind. We got to look at XRP risk metric.
Back into the cryptoverse.
Look at this. This is huge news. Benjamin is usually very correct about his predictions, but XRP, could it really hit $5 to $10?
Today, we're going to talk about XRP, and we're going to be looking at the risk metric. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the sale on Into the Cryptoverse Premium process on it.
So yeah, he's been calling that XRP will be only a few weeks, but that was before. Like, he was calling that XRP above $3 will be just a few weeks, right? And this was back in July, if I remember correctly, or May. So it was more than a few weeks, at least compared to the past, because the lawsuit is now over. And if we go over here, he's actually talking a lot about XRP and Bitcoin.
What you want to look for. You don't always get double bottoms with altcoins, so I don't want to imply that that always has to play out. But whenever you do have double bottom setups on an altcoin with its Bitcoin pair, it's usually a pretty good sign. Also, if you can couple it with kind of a similar time frame, right? Like if you look at this was June of 2024, and then like November. If you look at the cycle before, right, you can also see a low here in June and then another low in.
So all of these lows are exactly when the lawsuits were still in effect. So just keep that in mind. You know, I'm very open-minded, but we got to keep those in mind, that these lows that we saw with XRP Bitcoin pair, basically how much XRP you need to pay to get one Bitcoin. Very important factor here is they were happening during the lawsuits. And I feel like the lawsuits definitely affected the price, since they also had to sell during that time.
November. Now, that was not a double bottom, but it did lead to a nice spike. This one was a double bottom, and the spike was a lot higher. What's interesting is it just went back up, basically to the same level it went to, 4 years previous. Now, right now, XRP Bitcoin is nearly at the same valuation, if not the exact same valuation that it was at in August of 2021, right? So in August 2021, XRP was at the same.
So this is August 2021, and XRP is worth same as you could get Bitcoin for, basically. Like if you wanted to swap to Bitcoin, or how much XRP has gained compared to Bitcoin, it's literally the same level. And I feel like this is also because the lawsuit being over, we saw, the lawsuit basically boosting it back to the original price where it should be. That's all the gains we saw, from 50 cents to $3.
Satoshi valuation, believe it or not, right? I mean, it was. And, obviously I've talked a ton about Bitcoin dominance this cycle. And, to be completely honest, a lot of the loudest critics that I had for the Bitcoin dominance views that I had, like I was constantly promoting Bitcoin dominance. And I did say that dominance would likely find some resistance here at that 66% level up here, and then drop, and then probably rebound in late August. But a lot of the people that really wouldn't accept that and were always calling for a big dump were also really bullish on a lot of these altcoins, and including XRP. What I'm trying to say is that you don't have to just be blindly bullish on all these altcoins nonstop. One of the nice things, you look for these double bottom setups, right? So this has already played out this cycle, but in the future cycles, if you're watching an altcoin.
So yeah, I'm definitely hoping that, compared to Bitcoin, again, I'm best hoping for Bitcoin, but that XRP would grow more than Bitcoin's prices right now.
Lead back to Bitcoin, and then you're like wondering, well, when is it going to turn around?
What are your thoughts on holding with XRP? I'm going to check this right now, and holding XRP historically has never been bad decision. If you hold at least for 5 years. That's what I'm a firm believer of. That there's so much money in the world, like as long as if you hold top 3, which are Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP, they're bound to grow eventually compared to the markets. But again, it depends on you how long you will hold and if they will actually outperform the stock market. Now, stock markets are going to grow much less, but they are almost guaranteed in history, like the last 200, 100 years or whatever, they were guaranteed to grow.
One of the things you could look for is this double bottom pattern that some of these altcoins get against Bitcoin. That shows you a good sign for a nice rally. So XRP, technically speaking, is still well down against Bitcoin since 2017. Most things are, right? Even Ethereum is down against Bitcoin since 2017. In fact, it's a very similar pattern, if you're being honest. But the point that I'm trying to make is a lot of people have sort of reached out and they've said, like, well, where's XRP going to go? And why does it keep stalling out, around these levels? Well, the reason why I think it hasn't really been able to sort of push higher is because the risk, right? The risk of XRP, not like the fundamental risk. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about based on what it has historically done.
So historically, it has dropped. Like, this is where Benjamin is a bit bearish on XRP. Again, I love Benjamin. But the one that historically has it dropped is actually during, like, the first time it actually went up was post, like, it dropped much, much faster, in my opinion, or had much less high because $500 million had to be sold. And we have to consider this will, of course, affect the price. Like 2018 was an anomaly because this is when literally crypto saw its first major run.
Based on what it's historically done, the risk on it has remained relatively high. Now, this is basically blue.
See, that's the risk. Like when it's red, it's basically say to sell. But I don't believe this risk metric personally right now. Like this metric for me is not that scary. If you guys can't see the screen, it is red, just like here. It's between orange, yellow, and red. But again, what we're seeing here is XRP historically has not been the same. It's been much different than Bitcoin and Ethereum, in my opinion.
With 0 and red is 1, and you want it to be you want to be buying assets when they're at low risk levels and then selling when they're at high risk levels. If you take the color code out of this and you just look at it like this, you can see that XRP has sort of spiked into the 0.8 to 0.9 risk band a few times now. And every single time it does, it ends up just getting sold off. Now, technically, though, I mean, you got some higher lows here, but I would say that, I would say two things. If over the next few months, if XRP does go to the 0.9 to 1 risk span, I think it makes sense to run for the hills, right? Like, again, just look at all these major tops by XRP, right? Anytime it hits that highest risk span.
That's historically, right? So historically, we are already almost at that level. We're at 0.7. And if it hits 0.9 or 0 or even a 1, usually the price starts to crash.
That's it, right? You don't want to sort of sit around and wait, because usually after that happens, it's not good, especially considering we have likely a 2026 bear market coming up. If you look at 2014, you can see that.
So yeah, he's calling for a 2026 bear market, which kind of scares me, to be honest.
That XRP dropped quite a bit, right? So think about it like this. Look in 2014, and I think I might need to actually find a different exchange here to use to actually look back a little bit further. I'm not sure which one. I think it was... I'm not sure which one on here still has it going all the way back. Probably this one does. Not really sure what that wick is. But if you look at 2014 for, I guess this is the this is basically when it first came out. I mean, there wasn't really any movement on it, right? It was just that. But in 2018, XRP dropped about 80%, and then in 2022 it dropped about 60%. So it probably makes sense to assume that it will drop in the year of 2026.
So that's what Ben is calling, like XRP dropping in 2026. I feel like if that happens, the whole market will drop, not just XRP. So listen very closely. He's been right a lot of times, and he's calling the whole market will crash in 2026. Again, not financial advice, but I'm a bit worried for 2026. I'm always bullish on 2025. 2026 is when it really gets me worried, because we don't actually have any positive news or any big news coming up, and that's when usually historically the prices drop.
And so I would say one of two things, right? One of two things. One thing is if XRP does go to the 0.9 to 1 risk band sometime in the next 5 months, especially if it goes all the way up to 1 risk, that's probably it, right? You know, pack it up and we'll see you next cycle. If it doesn't, right? If it doesn't get up there, there's still a chance that it could, but by the end of the year, and really, you could argue, very beginning of January at the absolute latest, if it still hasn't gone to that higher risk band, then there's a good chance it probably isn't going to, right?
So people calling $10 XRP this cycle do not understand these charts, and it's very important to know that, the realistic price point, in my personal opinion, compared to this market cycle, is $4 to $5. And a lot of YouTubers are saying $10,000, $20,000, $1 million. It's not possible this cycle, in my opinion. Even $10 is going to be very, very hard, especially with this cycle. Historically, obviously the government is changing, but historically, $10, again, is going to be a hard push. That means each single, millionaire is now going to have 3 million. Of course, we are going to see a lot of market sell pressure.
And it'll just top out at a lower risk band, right? Because there is a reality of, it doesn't tend to spend that much time at the higher risk levels. And so, there's a chance that it's just spending a lot more time at these higher risk levels rather than just getting a spike very briefly up to an even higher risk level. Like if you look at the time in the wristbands for something like XRP, you'll notice that it's only spent 35 days in its entire history in that higher wristband. So if it happens, it's not going to last for very long. And if it doesn't happen, it's just because it's spending so much more of its time in this wristband right here, which normally it doesn't either, right? Like normally it'll just kind of spike up and then be done with. It's been staying a little bit more elevated this time.
That's because of the lawsuit over. Probably it's been a bit more in the red, which means it's been more risky. A lot of the whales are buying because they're expecting at least a 25% increase. In my personal opinion, why would the whales be buying millions of XRP? That's my question. If they feel like XRP is going to be dropping, could someone explain me why are the whales buying every single coin below $3?
So if you look at it,
maybe is it to sell a 350?
If you look at XRP back on its Bitcoin pair, this is actually a very similar pattern that we had last cycle at this exact same time, right? Let me switch this back to a log scale. Basically what you had was this this big run up and then a big dump, kind of the same level, and then another spike, but then it sold off again, right? It sold off again. And this would actually line up with the idea that Bitcoin dominance is going to likely bounce here in September. And September is a month where dominance normally changes direction from whatever.
So yeah, this is what I agree with him. Bitcoin dominance, which I told you guys, basically means that XRP September is going to be bad. A lot of my viewers on this channel, this is what I've been warning them. But October is when we get like that final push.
Whatever direction it's going. So I would argue that you're likely going to see a pullback by the XRP Bitcoin valuation in the months of September and October. That's what I would guess. You can also see, by the way, in 2021, that around the same time, XRP was heading to its 20-week SMA, right? It ended up bouncing in September around its 20-week SMA. The 20-week SMA for XRP right now corresponds to about $2.57, $2.67, right? So let's just call it around 260 to 270. So I wouldn't be surprised at all to see XRP check in with that bull market support band in September, probably even wicks below it like it did.
So yeah, he's calling for XRP to have a major point around September. Now, this kind of correlates with no news. I didn't find any pretty big news in September. Obviously, it's the ETFs in October that really changed my mind. And you guys know I do this full time. So September is kind of correlating with my news as well. There's no news at all that's really going to change in September. Like we saw a lawsuit last month. That's why price really changed. We saw literally the government promising us to buy crypto. You know, all of this news really pumped up. But now,
or highs,
not same
you know, in that time period. And this cycle, it's actually been putting in, you know, at least we've got one and two, we've got two higher highs, right? So if XRP comes down here to the bull market support band in September and then finds support and then bounces, if it does go to a higher high and then you see that risk metric for XRP, you know, in the 0.9 to 1 risk band, that could be it. Now, I know you got a lot of people out there putting...
Yeah, so he's saying like $4 is the where XRP could stop. And I'm not that worried about that. I'm just worried when people are calling $5 to $7. Like $5 to $7 is realistic if every single scenario in crypto that we've been hoping for goes correct. $5 to $7. Like, but $4 is basically what people are expecting and hoping for. Now, 5 to 7, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below as well.
Out crazy price predictions and whatnot, but that always happens, you know, near the end of longer cycles, right? Like this, the bull.
Could this cycle be different because the government, you know, is like more bullish on crypto because of regulation, AI, tech? Maybe that's why it could change. Who knows?
Market, right? When you're near the end of these multi-year bull markets, like we have been. You'll see all sorts of crazy predictions. So just be aware that, you know, if there's a pullback in September and then there's another run in Q4, don't fall for all the crazy price predictions, right? Try to be a little bit more level-headed with that kind of stuff, because that's the issue with any altcoin is people throw out all sorts of crazy price predictions and then they just disappear.
I kind of agree with him. Like, there's people calling $700 per XRP coin in 2025. Like, that's the most major, like, it's just impossible. If it's going to be $500 by the end of the year, you know what's going to happen to the market cap? It's literally going to be more than the US dollar.
Over that time frame will likely be the market cycle top for it this market cycle. And I think it makes sense to keep an eye on the risk metric. And if it hits that higher risk metric, higher risk band, that's probably it. And if it keeps not hitting it, then there's still a chance it could hit it for at least a few more months.
It's very difficult to create a prediction, especially with higher ups predicting high price. That's very true. That's the thing. XRP never had ETFs, right? So that's why, like at $4, XRP had a lawsuit. You know, that risk metric, XRP had no rate cuts at that point. I think they had actually rate cuts, but they had no ETFs, which is a big inflow. There is a lot of stuff that could push it to $5 or $6, but we should be careful at $4, and it's exactly as I told you guys. The support level is what's really, you know, changing everything. So I'll keep you guys updated on that. Smash that like button as well. 24 hours before it all flips, guys.
Massive event happening within 24 hours that will affect all markets, all risk-on markets, including crypto and the stock market. Bitcoin is also bouncing right now. It's going up to 111,000. You can actually see we are approaching the bottom.
So isn't there a huge partnership with Swift and XRP in November? Rate cuts in ETF in October? All of this stuff that really makes sense for XRP? I'm definitely very excited when that happens.
Side of this range. So pay attention right now because this is kind of an important moment for Bitcoin. We'll look at the overall markets though. What was just announced too, with the president announcing some US data is going to be on the blockchain. Let's talk about all this. I'm going to keep it nice and brief here for you. Try to get to the point pretty quickly. If you don't mind though, hit subscribe so you can see future videos just like this. Also, if you want to trade crypto, try out BYDeFi. Now's the time to do it. We're at a very key point for Bitcoin. So if you want to start trading, sign up. There's no harm.
So look at this. This is what I wanted to show you guys. Right now, we are at the key point where the markets could flip, but this could push out for a bit longer. And I feel like the crypto regulation that I've been warning you guys, maybe I want to expand on that. Crypto XRP stuff that we're seeing right now is going to take much, much longer than people think. Like all this regulation that XRP is hoping for, it's not a 1 year plan. It's not like 1 year and then forget. It's a 5 to 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 year plan. It's like realistically, it's like a 10-year plan for crypto. It's 5 years before we see any actual government updates like fully integrated in the crypto. Might take 2 or 3 years. But the good thing is XRP is preparing for it. So my opinion is I'm hopeful for XRP in the near future.
And cryptos that Trump owns, that are the companies that are related to crypto and the cryptos themselves that he owns. This will be interesting to see how this works, but a lot of people, myself included, think that more and more data is going to be published online on the blockchain. So I think this is a good step, right? Pretty interesting too that it's happening so quickly after the president came into office. I mean, we're talking about 7 months, which is pretty quick by government standards. Trump said, I will have a majority.
Yeah, the market's definitely improved, but that's also because, you know, just as the government was also changing, we saw some positive changes in the market. Like, you know, it's all connected. But I'm definitely very hopeful for XRP right now to majority in the Fed. Soon we have to lower interest rates. See, interest rate lower means we are getting up. But I'm worried about the bear market in 2026. If that happens, it's going to be a big problem.
In the Fed soon, we will have to lower interest rates. Still pushing for interest rate cuts. Of course, next month is the Fed rate decision that people think they're going to cut. They're actually going to cut finally. And this will be good for risk on assets, assuming that inflation doesn't come back. And this is, I think, why Trump tried to push Cookout, or why he's trying to push Cookout. He said yesterday that he was going to fire her, and she said, you don't have jurisdiction over me, I'm not going to be fired. So yeah, it looks like he's going to continue to try to assert dominance over
There's a lot of drama, but the reason why Trump wants, in my opinion, is because one, it's going to be good for real estate, and he owns a lot of real estate. Two, it's going to be good for crypto markets. And, you know, it's just like we've been hoping for this for a long time. We've been really hoping for a long time for interest rates to lower because that would get people more jobs and it would improve the economy. And we're still in this, like, you know, recession phase, basically, in terms of interest rates. It's, in my personal opinion, it's time to change them. But I don't work at Fed. And the Fed has hinted they might cut interest rates.
Fed, which is what I would have expected anyways, but it's interesting to see him put it so plainly. NVIDIA has earnings tomorrow. This is I'd say one of the most important, if not the most important companies in the market, because this is what all the large companies are spending money into. This is really the major growth path. In a lot of people's minds, AI is the major growth path for the top tech companies, which weigh down the majority of the stock market, right? They're the highest weighted. And for them to continue to grow aggressively, they need to invest in AI. They are investing in AI so that they can become more efficient and that they...
Like, this is the first cycle rally. But again, NVIDIA is not the only thing that the government and countries need improvements. Next up is Ripple and the payment systems I've been telling you guys. That's another thing that the governments, you know, they need improvements in the stock markets.
They can have better margins. They can do more with less. They can make better decisions. And how do they invest in AI? Well, NVIDIA is a massive part of that. So NVIDIA has earnings tomorrow. Depending on what comes out, it will severely affect the risk on markets. It will affect the crypto market. It will also affect probably even more the stock market, right? NVIDIA is like 8% of the NASDAQ now. Their estimates are $45.5 billion in revenue for the quarter, which is up 50.
And just, XRP being bullish. Wow. Look, there's a lot of good stuff with XRP being bullish and all these companies being bullish. It still shows me that there is money in the market.
1.5% year over year. That's insane. The EPS is estimated at $1. So 47.1% year over year. These are incredible growth numbers. And we can see this from the top tech companies already that they have, NVIDIA announces after a lot of the other top tech companies, they are still aggressively pushing more and more money into AI. They continue to up guide it.
AI is the first thing and basically payment processing the second thing of the huge bull run wave.
Up CapEx guidance. So for NVIDIA, I would expect them to have good earnings. The question is whether they can hit estimates, right? Because these are very lofty estimates. A lot of it will come down to guidance as well, right? Do they continue to project this kind of growth rate, or are they going to start growing slower? I've got to think at some point they're going to grow a little bit slower, right? They can't grow 50% for the next 10 years. At least I don't think they could. But they're at $4.4 trillion now. Over the last 1 year, they're still up 44%.
So yeah, this just shows you that the stock markets, if the stock markets do good, usually historically it means that others will do good as well. This is why XRP can hold above its $3 is because crypto right now is still going strong. It's still getting stronger, and that's because the stock market is the main reason. Because if the stock market goes down, also Bitcoin goes down, right? So the demand for chips is still just as big. So this tells me technology is still valued nowadays.
This company is a monster. So everyone will be watching this tomorrow. Like I said, it will affect crypto as well because a lot of hedge funds are now investing into crypto along with the stock market. So if the traditional market takes a big tumble, we could see crypto fall down as well. There's already weakness though and a lot of manipulation, so I would not be surprised if NVIDIA came out and had good earnings, if people go risk on and we break out to the upside.
This just tells you like bear markets, the start of bear markets does not start, being all green and being all bullish. It usually starts the price being the same, which I don't feel like is the same scenario with XRP. XRP is the same right now. It would go lower unless these whales kept buying. In my personal opinion, I see a lot of these whales buying below $3 whenever we go, 2.75. A lot of people are complaining, or $5. We already saw whales buying back. And these whales, they are buying massive supplies. Why? Because they believe the prices will go up.
Bitcoin at 111,000, like I said, right on the bottom side of this trend line, the bottom side of this range. So I'd be watching this $111,000 level. Look at Ethereum too, having a pretty good day, up to almost 4,600 right now. Again, like people are going risk on with Ethereum and continuously buying. Look at other altcoins and, it's pretty green across the board. One that I've been pretty outspoken about recently that I think is going to do really well here soon, especially when people go a little bit more risk on after Ethereum. I think Solana could do well. It's at 197, just putting in higher lows and higher highs as well. Let me know your thoughts on all this underneath the video. Let me know if there's anything that you're seeing in the market that I missed.
I think it's pretty clear that the markets are going to push for one final rally. And then 2026 is what I'm very worried at. And I will keep you updated, guys. But it looks like that XRP is still in demand.
This is 100.
It's still not very scary as we saw back in 2021 was a much bigger market crash. We're nowhere near that. So Tom Lee,
crypto is no longer considered
record-setting new bull market. So I don't feel like September will be huge, but I want to see what Tom Lee says about XRP.
Approach is such a huge barrier. The bigger picture looks very different though. Analysts are drawing a striking parallel. Ethereum today may be in the same position Bitcoin was back in 2017, when it rocketed from $1,000 into the financial spotlight as Wall Street started paying serious attention.
So I feel like at XRP at this stages, it's trying to become the next wave of technology. It's trying to even out and actually go into stock market, not just stay in crypto. It's trying to stay even during these bear markets. It wants to keep building technology and selling technology to banks. It's actually trying to get away. The only thing they're going to do is use technology of XRP and crypto. So it's very clear that, you know, it's going to have different run cycles than Bitcoin. I feel like it's going to be more on terms of development, like they release a new development or a new partnership. Bitcoin just followed when a whale bought, you know, when billionaires bought. That's when Bitcoin really grew.
And just like Bitcoin back then, Ethereum is now catching the eyes of institutions, hedge funds, asset managers, and major investors who see its role extending far beyond speculation. Many experts say $5,000 isn't just possible, it's realistic, especially since Ethereum already brushed 4,000 last December. The renewed momentum isn't just hype. On-chain data shows transaction volumes and active addresses hitting all-time highs. Developers are pushing network upgrades, the community is buzzing, and adoption is spreading across industries from decentralized finance to stablecoins. Even the regulatory environment, often seen as a stumbling block, may be tilting in Ethereum's favor. Differing from Bitcoin, Ethereum offers some...
Like, that's the thing. Like, Bitcoin didn't have its own run already. Now it's literally time for the altcoin season to start, which I don't feel like is going to be big as 2021. But Tom Lee literally hints that we are going to be seeing an altcoin rally in that sense. We are going to be seeing a massive influx of XRP getting bought. The pump we saw right now is already priced in from the lawsuit being over.
Institutional investors in their funds can't buy Ethereum directly. They need to find a way to get exposure to Ethereum, and they do it through public companies. That's why institutions bought MicroStrategy. It's their way to get Bitcoin exposure. Ethereum is going to capture so much of that value, and we're citing some work from Mosaics and from Fundstrat, but if you just think about it as payment rails moving onto Ethereum and some of the banking, you get to a network value of $60,000 value per ETH. So that's why we think it's one of the biggest macro trades over the next 10 to 15 years. But the reason we're attracting so much interest, because we become the largest and we're raising more than $1 billion per week, is because we are growing that institution's holdings of Ethereum per share. So they know that as a treasury, that's the importance, that an Ethereum treasury company has to be using capital markets and really good, smart ways to acquire Ethereum to actually grow the Ethereum held per share. And as your press release that you highlighted, from just a month ago, we went from 2284 in ETH on July 27th to...
So why is he buying Ethereum? Mostly because he knows that the markets might pump. Didn't he just buy 10 billion Ethereum? Guess what? When he buys that, XRP goes up as well.
Cash held Ethereum token per share. So with the $9 billion worth of ETH held today, that's about almost $300 million of net income for Bitmine. So Bitmine is generating GAAP net income, pre-tax net income. But there's something else that's called the power law. And the power law is the idea that the larger someone is and part of an interconnected network, the greater their influence. And the third thing, of course, to keep in mind is that Ethereum is still generally not liked by institutions because most have bet on Bitcoin.
This is where XRP really wins. Like, institutions love it. They literally invited them to the government speech about crypto regulation.
So they're suddenly saying
about the Genius Act bill. They invited Brad Garlinghouse to voice his opinion.
I don't really
That's a very positive sign.
Understand why we should be caring about Ethereum. As you know, this is why Ethereum is probably falling into the most hated rally, because year to date, Ethereum's up 35%. It's outperforming Bitcoin's 17% gain, but most institutions have zero exposure. That's why Kathy Wood says Ethereum, she thinks, is the institutional blockchain, but nobody really owns Ethereum except really the retail investor and, of course, now Bitmine.
Yeah, and it's funny because we've seen Ethereum drop over the past couple of days, but when I look at the ETF inflows, I saw $500 million, $443 million to be exact, of net inflows from the BlackRocks, the Fidelities of the world. So it is quite interesting, the algos that are part of the crypto ecosystem. Obviously, those algos can go up or down, but there is a bid that is being put on this asset class.
A proper Ethereum treasury raising capital actually is.
So there's also an XRP treasury that just raised 20 million. And once more treasuries come after the ETF, the crypto regulation, wow, there could be a lot more coming in. Just like Ethereum following the same path, you know, as Ethereum goes up, XRP goes up as well. But yeah, this is a new financial wave, in my personal opinion.
Anti-dilutive, because the ones that are executing it properly can grow your Ethereum held per share. If your Ethereum held per share is going up, none of the capital markets is dilution.
Right.
That's what I think fundamentally people need to understand the model. Now, if Bitmain was trading at or below its Ethereum holdings, that should not be a time to be raising capital, because that's dilutive. There is, zero intention for Bitmain to ever dilute its holders. And actually, I think it's been proven, because again, on July 8th, there was $4 of Ethereum held per share. And today, 7 weeks later, there is $40 of Ethereum held per share. So
yeah, it's pretty clear that also XRP, their massive goal is not to make more tokens like the US dollar is printed right now. The end goal of XRP is to get crypto out there and get it less and less and less and less, like to get XRP burned every single day.
Shareholder on July 8th, if they looked at their forward multiple, they paid $4.50 for the stock, when in just 8 weeks, there would be $40 of Ethereum held per share.
Ethereum isn't just holding its ground, it's starting to pull ahead. As 2025 winds down, Ethereum has actually outperformed most other major crypto assets.
So yeah, it is following the same pattern as XRP, outperformed by 600%.
Driven by record on-chain activity, surging developer adoption, and growing institutional demand. While Bitcoin continues to anchor the market, Ethereum's momentum is signaling that it could be a real leader in this next phase, setting the stage for what analysts call its strongest run yet. Embracing an unyielding enthusiasm for the Bitcoin realm, Tom Lee confidently predicts that explosive growth is looming on the horizon, as BlackRock and many other crypto giants are doing just that. Tom Lee reassures that a long-expected surge awaits. By the end of 2025, there will be 1.1 billion active crypto wallets. The pace of growth is hard to comprehend, and it will be the fastest accumulation of wealth we have ever seen. This is the conclusion of a career.
A lot of upside.
So look at this. Look at what he says here.
Of course, as you know, September is the month everyone's going to be worried about. So
September is the month you're going to be worried about. Again, guys, this is what I've been warning you about September.
Month where you might get a pullback, but you need to be buying that dip. And as you know, every pullback, everyone has been ringing the bell saying it's the top. That has always been a dip buying opportunity since 2020.
So historically, Septembers have been bad for XRP. Even billionaires are saying it.
22. So I just say keep that in mind, that you really should be buying a dip. We also have not seen the positive benefits of two things yet. A dovish Fed, because the Fed has been on hold. And so you're not really in a bull market if the Fed's on hold. And second is that the ISM, which is really a broad measure of economic activity, that's been below 50 for almost 30 months now. And so
what historically happens is September is when XRP goes down, even like a very heavy correction, like 30%, 20 to 30%, since its peak or whatever. And then October is when it finally makes one last push in the crypto altcoin markets, bull run markets.
Onshoring, etc. And then plus the AI tailwind. We also have not seen the positive benefits of two things yet. A dovish Fed, because the Fed has been on hold. And so you're not really in a bull market if the Fed's on hold.
Exactly. So crypto has never seen AI and technology rising before. That's where XRP really wins.
50. So once that turns above 50, and that'll happen hopefully shortly after the Fed starts cutting again, then you have not only a manufacturing recovery happening, you know, and especially with onshoring, et cetera, and then plus the AI tailwind. So actually there is a whole series of things that create a bull market. And look, I know it's a continuum for people because a lot of people are saying, well, I've already been making money in stocks. Why is it a new bull market? But really in the minds of the institutions, it's a new bull market. I still do Zooms.
So yeah, he's saying we're entering a new bull market once this September phase ends.
And meetings with institutional investors where they think that this is just simply bubble talk, that stocks have recovered on vapors because in their minds, central bank liquidity is required to justify a stock move, and the Fed has been on hold since all of 2025, right? So we're at least 9 months in. And there is no central bank balance sheet expansion either. So in their minds, then it's just simply someone who isn't grounded in understanding the Fed drives everything buying stocks. I think that that's kind of the overlying thesis for many people who do macro. But of course, 2025 has proven that that's not the correct thesis. I think what this year has proven is one needs to really look at what are the stocks that are important to the economy. And AI has done fine. AI hasn't cared about tariffs or inflation, and the required infrastructure investment has been very powerful. And that's
AI with this bull run could be one of the biggest gainers, basically. AI plus, banks basically looking for a solution, which might take some time. All of that, and also the basically rate cuts with 0.5 plus ETFs. Ethereum already saw its ETF price point, so XRP ETFs is gonna be massive in October until we perhaps wind down in 2026, in my opinion.
It's the infrastructure powering decentralized finance, stablecoins, and entire ecosystems of applications that regulate.
So you get a pretty clear idea what is going on in the crypto market right now. It seems like the government is gonna push for more productivity, for crypto getting more and more up, and also the stock market, because they're trying to make more jobs with what we are seeing right now with the new updates to the markets itself. So this is what the billionaires are talking. He also said on stream that, he's very excited when he's talking with other billionaires. They feel like it's the same thing. I will keep you guys updated with more news. Been streaming 2 hours and 41 minutes. I think my future me wants to hit up some other work, some bed. If you guys want more content like this, smash that like button, and I love you all. And also check out my other videos. I would make more videos, honestly, but I'm getting slightly sleepy, and you can see it affects how I talk as well. So yeah.